Kind of like a film, which originally I criticized them for it, but I think it's just another way of generating viewership, because a lot of people that aren't interested, or excuse me, haven't, the general public that might not be watching this stuff, they need stuff that actually catches their interest, right? It's not just so it appears a little bit more cinematography. Cinematic. There you go. Why is that hard to say? I don't know. Yeah. There we go. All right. So Skywatcher Ranch is, I don't even know what they classify themselves as. They're provides advanced aerial intelligence and protection systems founded by former military and intelligence professionals. That's what they do. They don't really state what they do. I guess basically they look for UAPs, I guess is what it comes down to. UFOs, UAPs, obviously UFOs being rebranded as UAPs to avoid stigma. However, now there's actually blowback in the UAP community because people feel as though they're downplaying UFOs by using UAP instead. Now, you can't make this stuff up, guys. Great stuff, guys. All right. Take a peek.
In part 1 of Skywatcher, you heard a lot of very believable people making truly unbelievable claims.
So, unfortunately, this guy, I believe that's the same guy from episode 1, was turned into kind of a giggling kid in episode 1, which didn't actually help with credibility. In addition to that, not a fan of story time. There is a lot of story time nowadays, and that can only do so much, right? Everyone knows, about the guy, Jake Barber, David Grush, the guys that saw Tic Tac, the actual people from the military. A lot of it comes down to actual sensor data, or data in general. Data, video, photos, the stuff where you can't debunk it right away, right? Like, oh, that's a weather balloon. Oh, it's a Mylar balloon. Stuff like that. That's where it really, the brass tacks, right? Where the shit hits the fan, where it really, the wheels hit the road, rubber hits the road. A bunch of idioms for that. But basically is what it comes down to. And there's plenty of people, especially in the UAP and UFO space, as we cover basically, I've been covering, I don't cover everything that comes out of the UFO space, but the interesting things that are out of the ordinary or are unprecedented. Occasionally I'll show you guys UAPs, UFOs that might be on Twitter. But unless it's just, it's just more of, the same thing. There's nothing really breaking the noise, so to speak. We cover the congressional UAP hearings because that really matters, because that's actually legitimately the government taking it seriously. And with the disclosure task force that's now formed, of which you guys have seen probably on the news, the release for the JFK files, the Epstein files. Epstein files kind of disappeared, weirdly enough. They're supposedly going to be releasing more of that, but they haven't yet. And then they're supposedly also going to be releasing information on UAPs, UFOs at some point. They have not done that yet, though, right? So that's also in the works. But, yeah, plan is for them to actually have disclosure for UAPs and UFOs. Whether or not that happens, we'll have to, remains to be seen. But for now, guys, segue of a segue here, going back to this, looking for actual meaningful data. That matters a lot. And one of the things I criticized them for, putting aside the guy that was kind of turned into a giggling kid in this episode 1, is the lack of not only data, especially when they apparently saw it, it was pretty obviously they saw it, but it kind of comes across as ghost hunters. If you guys have ever seen the sci-fi show, which is mainly not about finding ghosts, whether or not they did or not, remains to be seen, but more of it's a sensational piece to drive viewership and engagement, right? Whether or not that's the case, remains to be seen. But here we are, looking at it now today, giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Skywatcher's objective is to use the scientific method to
box.
Or invalidate these claims and hopefully usher in a new understanding of reality.
Titles.
For Skywatcher Part 2, our focus is on data. In this episode, you will...
They do. Okay. So we can use subtitles here. I know some of you guys need to see subtitles, so this works out better. Much better.
Part 1 of Skywatcher, you heard a lot of very believable people making truly unbelievable claims. Skywatcher's objective is to use the scientific method to validate or invalidate these claims and hopefully usher in a new understanding of reality.
This sucks you can't align
Skywatcher Part 2,
subtitles.
our focus is on data. In this episode, you will meet James Fowler. James runs the technology team here at Skywatcher, and over the past few years, he has put together what I consider to be, by far, the highest quality private repository of UAP data in the world. For the
Can't
first
boost the
time,
volume anymore.
James has agreed to be interviewed on camera, and we will be releasing the data that he's collected over the past many years. So we're out here in the desert, running our second Skywatcher event of the year. As you've heard about, we're focused on two different types of UAP calling. We have machine calling, and we have psionic calling. We've had success with both of these different types. But over the past few days, on the machine calling side, we've witnessed a lot of spectacular things.
So, one of the things they don't explain here, and still is kind of up in there, because I've watched some of the behind-the-scenes stuff or interviews, basically. He did one with News Nation. They've described these techniques. One is a dog whistle, and the other one is more like psionic, I guess. And the dog whistle is basically like radio frequency, as far as I understand it. They don't really describe where these came from, or like what would be epistemology. I think epistemology is for words, though. The history or the lore of these techniques and where they come from, which I think is actually pretty important. And I've only basically kind of pieced together parts from interviews I've watched, right? And they don't really go into great deal on it. And I'm not necessarily telling you exactly how to do it, as much as describing where they learn these from and why they matter, right? Stuff that actually matters a lot, and they haven't really went out of their way to do that.
Every time we have an event, we have things happen that I truly cannot explain. We and the rest of our team are doing our very best to collect a robust set of data to share with all of you. But I hope you can understand.
Which matters a lot. It's one of the things I criticize them for heavily on the first episode on Twitter and in YouTube.
Seemingly are able to appear and disappear in real time. We're talking about objects that seem to evade our sensors. They seem to actually turn our sensors off at times. And I can say...
the turning the sensors off part, by the way, is not actually uncommon. There's another channel/media, I think they're mainly more of a ghost hunter sort of thing, which I think they're in tandem with the History Channel, is Skinwalker Ranch, which is another one. And they actually have, they run into phenomenon that actually causes their sensors and basically drains their batteries, which actually would be pretty cool. There's a lot of ways you could scientifically monitor that, and it's coming from, I believe, a Mesa. I haven't really kept up with that one, because that seems more in the lines with ghost hunters, as opposed to an actual legitimate, like, operation that's attempting to debunk something there. It's the same, like, you know, the weird thing is, guys, like, you know how we cover the pyramid tubes, which, by the way, is single-handedly one of the most amazing discoveries ever to exist right now, right? Which Ross kind of debunked, but not really. He talked to people that know about SAR data and said it wasn't possible. But in the video, which we covered, the 4-hour video, if you watched it, like, they legitimately take the data, and then they use a Fourier transform. They actually tell you, like, literally how it works and the actual mathematics for doing so. They took the data, and then they used the data, and specifically, from what I understand, the error in the data, because the way it works is if stuff vibrates, because it has small amounts of variation at any given time, it'll actually generate error. And SAR data is so accurate, they can look at basically the error that's being generated in the picture. That's what it picked up from the video. And they use it to generate a Fourier transcript of basically the vibrations in, like, an area and compare it to what's underground. It's actually really, really fucking cool. But most everyone has debunked it, including Snopes, which now just, I think, has a question mark, like, we don't know exactly what's going on here, which they originally debunked it, by the way. They don't actually look at the 4-hour video, which it takes time to do, and you have to do it, right? But anyways, in that video, just kind of going out here with the Mesa thing, in Egypt, there is all sorts of weird fucking shit. And this is one of the reasons it's kind of like, over time, has been kind of, you know, weird and interesting too, right? We talked about the Well of Osiris, which actually, according to the SAR scan, the what do we call it? Extended? No. They don't even have a name for their technique, which actually just makes it worse. They needed to coin a term for their technique, and they didn't do it. It's like Doppler SAR, is, I think, they explained it as Doppler, right? With Doppler SAR, yeah, There's just a little bit. It could be a lot. It's easier to understand the difference between the two, right? But in the Doppler SAR, what they're looking at was under the Well of Osiris, there's actually more going on there. And then if you look at the videos of people that go into the Well of Osiris, there's like a wall that's actually like closed up instead of, it wouldn't make sense unless it's load bearing or something, right? They literally just closed up one of the walls in the bottom of the Well of Osiris. Yeah. Crazy shit, guys. Crazy, crazy fucking shit. And like they have all this weird shit going on over there, and they don't even they have to know. Like what's his name? Zahi? He's basically the head Egyptologist in the area, and he like just basically debunks everything. And like he does a lot of really weird stuff, and they don't even take time to like look at this stuff, which makes you wonder what exactly is going on over there, right? Like half of Egypt's GDP, if you didn't know that, half of Egypt's GDP is actually from tourism, which is pretty incredible, right? Absolutely incredible. You'd be like, wow, man, let's go to town on this shit. But if you actually look at some of the videos, it's kind of like a lot of the areas are just dilapidated. They don't really care. There's trash everywhere. Really weird things. But like all they have to do is like they can make a tour, like a new tourism attraction. They don't even have to do anything except dig. That's insane, right? But like stuff like this, you could easily debunk by just doing a core drilling, right? So you put in a giant like 2-inch tube and you drill not through the pyramid, by the way. You drill under the pyramid, which is where the pyramid tubes are. You could instantly debunk it. But like just the weird stuff that's going on there, not even the SAR data. There's one, it wasn't the Well of Osiris. It's from, by the way, once again, very cool stuff. And I didn't even, like, Egypt's always been kind of cool, right? But it's not really been something where I went on my way. There's a lot of young archaeologists, I want to call them, or YouTuber archaeologists, right? A little bit different league that basically just went over there and they're like looking through the ruins and stuff like that and putting like little bits and pieces of stories together and whatever. Like playing, what are they called? The yarn map, the yarn thing, like the yarn map in detective novels or whatever, right? They're basically doing stuff like that, right? They're going back through. They're doing a little yarn map of different things going on there, and it's all sorts of weird things that you can't really put a number on. But like for some certain reason, Egypt hasn't even went out of their way, or they do, and they have basically a reverse engineering program, much as what is being accused of the U.S. right now. They have a reverse engineering program for whatever's underneath the pyramids, because it is very clear, based on some of the videos, I'd highly recommend Trevor Grassi, I believe is his YouTube channel. Highly recommend looking at them, because he not only has first-hand videos, pictures, he has ground-penetrating radar data, yeah, which the Egypt government actually has, and they know, but they don't actually go and do anything with, which is once again also very weird, as well as first-hand testimony. So story time, I'm not discounting story time, but story time only means, it's only the beginning, right? You can only go so far with story time unless you have things to corroborate the story. I'm a fan of story time, I like it, but at the end of the day, it just turns into an old wives' tale unless there's someone actually around that's actually capable of putting together the pieces, right? More than that, right? But anyways, like the most recent one that I was looking at, obviously it's been there forever, isn't the Well of Osiris. It's actually the Temple of... One second, we're just going to our segue here, guys, as is normally the case, just with weird shit. What was it called? Not the Nile. Lake, no. City, no. I didn't even know about that one. Shit, what? Temple of Isis? I can't even find it. It was like a well, only it's not a well. It's not the Well of Osiris. Did you dye your beard? Why is it like 10 times darker than your head? It's not. Also, I appreciate you looking at my hair. That's very nice. I actually have some grays in there as it goes. My head's pretty dark too. Trying to debunk my hair. Also, no, I haven't had the need to dye my hair yet. They'll probably come on in coming years, but no. It's just naturally dark. Egypt, well... Egypt temple, well... I there's so much stuff in Egypt, it's very difficult. Like the temple well doesn't dry up. Back temple. This is pretty interesting. What, temple? Ah, here we go. The Assyrian. The Assyrian. So this guy right here, guys, the Assyrian, is actually very, very interesting. So there is this temple, which is behind another temple, and it's like below the ground level, but kind of not really. There's a lot of going theories just in general. Like I said, there's a lot of really weird shit in Egypt. And one of the going theories, by the way, is that Egyptians didn't even build Egypt. Rather, most of old Egypt predates modern, I guess, ancient Egyptians. Like, Egypt today, or excuse me, a lot of the Egyptian, like, hieroglyphs and stuff actually predates some of the builds. And one of them is this guy here, which is the Syrian. And the Syrian is actually pretty cool. Like I watched a video on this other day when I was eating my dinner. And it's interesting because it's essentially like... it's a temple in the water, but it never dries up. And it's being basically pumped by an aquifer, as best they can tell, but it's pressurized pumping. Like something that aquifers generally don't do. They just basically flatten out, right? But you could drain them out. But they basically hit it with a 500 GPM pump, and they couldn't drain it out fast enough. And then, like, they tried to wall off and segment, because it actually goes down. Like, I think they said 45 feet. As best they can tell with the measuring stick, it goes down 45 feet. And they tried to basically segment off part of this well so that they could drain it out. You know, like how you make, what are they called? Like pillars for bridges, right? So you build, I forgot the name of it, but basically it's the enclosure on the outside. You build an enclosure down, and then you pump the water out, and then you can put down a footing or a pillar into the ground, right? So you put the filler or pillar down into the center of it, and then you pull it back up, and that's how you get the, you know, the supports for bridges, right? They tried doing that, and what actually happened was it actually filled back up. Like, they couldn't pump out, like, a little corridor of water. Like, it somehow was adjusting where it is pumping water out. Like, really, really weird shit. And you're like, why don't they just bring more pumps? You know what? One pump, I mean, obviously it's a lot of water, but you should eventually be able to drain that shit, right? But the weird thing is they tested it. There's a lot of really weird things surrounding the Syrian. They tested the water. They found it doesn't actually come from the Nile. It's not from the local aquifer, so like where they're getting their drinking water. The water, one of the guys allegedly, once again, he allegedly basically filtered the water. One of the lead researchers filtered the water, and he just drank it for like a couple of years, and then all of a sudden he no longer had to wear glasses anymore. Whether or not that's bullshit or not remains to be seen. But like I said, it's just not one thing. It's a lot of really, really weird things going on. And this is one of them right here. The Syrian is one of those really weird things in Egypt. And there's a lot of interesting things, like we just talked about the mesa at Skywatcher Ranch, where you think you're like, huh, if I'm a monkey, and I'm like, hey, this doesn't make sense, why don't you be like, hey, let's bring like 4 pumps over here and try that out, right? Let's go at it, guys. But like, for some reason, they don't do it. And it's like one of the weirdest things. I don't really get it, because they clearly could, like, they have a lot going on there, unless they know, right? Unless they already know. And they just don't want to do it because they know something's really weird, right? I don't understand it. Like, pumps are expensive, but in terms of like excavation, they aren't that expensive, right? So an entire excavation and draining water is not like, it's not going to ruin anything. Like, it's nothing I'm suggesting is like harming. Like, excavating is not like harming the temple or whatever's there, right? But the Assyrians is pretty cool because a lot of like carbon dating or like the area, they basically figured out that it's older than the temple is in front of it and predates it. And like the Egyptians decided to put some hieroglyphs on it in like one spot, but it doesn't really, otherwise it doesn't have any. Like the normal temple itself didn't actually have any. Yeah. But I don't know. Instead they decided let's not do it. Or, you know, they only did the 500 GPM pump. But, like, why aren't you like, let's bring 2,500 GPM, you know? Like, the weird thing is, like, there's all this stuff going on, and just, like, it seems like no one cares, or not the right people care. I don't really know. It's just, in general, like, with Skinwalker Ranch, where it feels like ghost hunters, if they have this mesa, why don't they excavate it, right? And they don't. So, here we are, right? Which is also why, by the way, why I don't even know how I got on this segue, but why it's actually important to actually like do stuff that you're talking about, right? And there's not so many people to do. You have to have money to do it too. And once again, 500 GPM pumps are expensive, but you could also rent them. I mean, maybe you can't in Egypt. And obviously, getting rights from the government to do anything is a real pain in the ass, from what I understand. But at the same time, the guy that's doing it already has rights, so why wouldn't he do it? I don't know. Yeah. I thought most 50-year-olds diet. You're an exception. Yeah, I'm not 50 yet. Thank you very much, by the way. Sure, I have strong swimmers, but that's not. Yeah, I haven't had the purpose of dyeing my beard yet. It's getting there. It'll eventually get there. But I don't know, guys. Weird things.
Shit keeps happening.
52. No.
I consider myself to be a very logical,
not that old.
rational person.
I am as well.
The rabbit.
I want to believe, guys. I want to believe, but you have to show me. You have to show me the pictures that actually is linked to science, right? Story time only goes so far. I could talk about story time all I want. You know, I could talk about the 50 people, you know, 50 women in my 20s, but I don't, because you know what's there to it, and you can't prove anything. So, yeah.
Hole of UAPs and consciousness
No.
has been
No, you get to watch the hand, not the face.
Experience of my life. Been hands down person. This rabbit hole, the rabbit hole of UAPs and consciousness, has been hands down the
50 women what?
Experience of my life.
Show us the sensor data. You actually wouldn't. So one of the reasons I don't have face cam on, I used to have it on. I had it on for a decade. One of the reasons I don't have face cam on is because I found out people really don't care. It makes things a lot less stressful when you're playing video games. You can chill out a lot easier. In addition to the fact, like, once again, it doesn't matter to most people. Just I've had a couple people that were, questioned when I turned off my face cam besides my podcast. I turned off my face cam for gaming, and it really doesn't matter unless you are really, really attractive or you're a chick. It doesn't really matter because boobas, and I have moobs, but I don't have boobas.
So today we had a class 7.
That is toilet tissue. You can use toilet tissue for a lot of things as a fleshy human meat bag, as it turns out.
It was pretty low to the ground. We saw it visually, their eyes. We had it on radar as well.
We've been collecting UAP data for more than 5 years with electromechanical signaling, which we call our dog whistle. Generally speaking, we see 3 to 5 different classes of UAP per day.
But they don't describe where it came from or how they know about it.
On the dog whistle, UAPs literally come to us day after day.
They call it a dog whistle because
to
it's summon these UAPs.
We had to define a lexicon, and we based it on flight characteristics.
Yep, which is important.
We've broken the UAPs down into 9
dichotomy,
classes,
right?
Or types. Some of these classes may be the same UAP under different flight configurations, but at this point, given their behavior, we're confident they don't align with conventional or terrestrial X.
I'd actually take this one step further, and they're basically describing shapes, but I'd classify them as how they come across. So, I mean, they kind of already do this, but energy as opposed to something physical, right? And a lot of them fall into an energy category where they won't fall into. Arguably, like, there's another kind of weird thing. Like, I was talking to, like, with some crazy footage, if you ever seen ball lightning, right? But there's one video online where people thought it was AI, but then there's other people that were legitimate. It was a UAP video. Were legitimately saying it was ball lightning, right? But if you look at some of the ball lightning, you can't artificially make ball lightning. It's still one of these really, really weird areas of science where they haven't completely figured it out. And, like, the only thing they've been able to make is, like, a momentary, like, blip of, like, what looks like maybe a ball. And they call it ball lightning, right? There's the artificial ball lightning basically does not exist. But in the video is, like, a 30 or 45 seconds of this ball lightning basically coming in the guy's window. And, by the way, it can physically interact with stuff, too. That makes it even weirder. Can come in this guy's window and then basically moved around his living room and, like, went to, like, his side and then it went back to another after a lightning strike. So a lot of the ball lightning is from lightning strikes, right? Just as a kind of as a supplemental piece of material here, guys. Let's see if I can find it. It's actually really, really cool. I don't think I showed it to you guys. Ball lightning UAP. Let's see if I can find it. It's actually very, very, very cool. No. And like some of the stuff, like ball lightning, which has been around for a long time, don't mind. It's been something science has known about for a long time. Not the same to disprove science, but rather it's so one of those things that they can't actually figure out what it is. So it's like, yeah, of course it's ball lightning, but that doesn't actually tell you what it is, right? It just says it's ball lightning. It's like a classification of an orb. It was really, really big, like I just want to say 2 months ago. I don't think I showed it to you guys. Ball, let's see, room, UAP, balls, OP's favorite word. No. Ball, UAP, floating through living room. I think it's from TikTok. Oh, I think it's 3 weeks ago. There's a post. No, it's from older, and it's literally they're trying to debunk it, asking if it is debunked. It is like 2 months ago. Check this out. Showing you guys all this weird stuff, and once again, it's not definitive proof. None of this stuff is definitive proof, right? But it's really, really fucking cool. So here we go. Make sure I don't dox myself here. Yeah. Find it? Christ, this load. Like, it actually moves the curtain when it enters the window? And I don't think this is fake. I don't think this is AI at all. Like, people are just saying it's ball lightning, that's the debunking it, but we don't actually know what ball lightning is. We don't actually know how to make ball lightning, by the way, as I mentioned before. And ball lightning almost always appears after lightning strikes, which is why people call it ball lightning, because they think it's a ball of lightning, right? It appears almost always after lightning strikes, but one of the interesting things about this is what happens if a UAP or a UFO gets hit by lightning, right? So what you might be seeing here is a malfunctioning UAP or UFO, as it turns out, and this is basically what happens before either they realign themselves or maybe they're dying, right? It could be a life form that gets hit and, it's kind of fizzling out, and it's just kind of the way that it goes. So then it loses basically, its bearings and what it's doing, and kind of wanders around lost, like disoriented, because it just got hit by a bolt of lightning, as it turns out. A bolt of lightning probably is pretty detrimental to most electronics when they get hit by it, or, people. I mean, there's people that are hit by lightning strikes and they survive. However, they're most definitely disoriented and fucked around with when it happens, right? So there's still people that, where people fall into this category, and they're perfectly fine, right? But in the case of UAPs and UFOs, a lot, like, science itself doesn't really know what this is. They just know that it happens. It's a phenomenon that happens after lightning. And there's all different sorts of explanations of what it is, which require very, very specific scenarios. And one of them is it's following the pipes under the ground. this doesn't look like it's following pipes. This looks like it's intelligently looking around, or kind of like groggily. You know how you wake up in the morning, you kind of don't know what's going on. You just kind of like gingerly walk around, just, you know, like it looks like it's looking at itself in the mirror just now. If you guys just missed that, that's a mirror on the wall. And then it goes back into this room, and I don't know if you stop filming it, or it's usually they pop and like they fizzle out. Yeah, this I thought was actually really, really fucking cool. And there really isn't a way of debunking this completely. Like, there's just people saying it was AI, and that's pretty much it. But other than that, or excuse me, it's ball lightning. That was basically the explanation. And there's some people who think it's AI. It doesn't look like AI at all. They thought it was, you know, based on the reflections that was interacting with everything in the environment. But yeah, like, they still don't know what it is, and just saying it's ball lightning does not actually explain what it is, right? Which is why it's, yeah, kind of important. It's another segue I just went on, just completely off tangent. We were talking about different dichotomies or ways of classifying UAPs and UFOs. But, like, there's a lot of really weird stuff that you just think already, you think science has figured it out. Oh, it's ball lightning, right? But as it turns out, this actually could just be a UAP that's malfunctioning currently. Very, very cool. Very, very, very cool.
Explanations. Each UAP class has different characteristics. Some shimmer, some tumble, some spin. Some look like they're alive and they just fly like a living object in the sky.
Some of these, I swear, like, I've seen this on Twitter. I'm sure you guys have seen the morphing ones. Do they have one that's classified as a morph? It's a blob. We're talking about, like, different dichotomies and way of associating them, right? Like, energy seems like it's its own sort of category, and then you have something that's more physical, and then maybe you have something that's, like, morphine, like an in-between state. Like, what's the type of matter that is non-Newtonian fluids is what I'm thinking about, where there's some sorts of matter where it's kind of in simultaneous states at the same time. I think plasma falls into that category, too. But, like, another one would be one that changes shape, right? Do they even have one that changes shape here? Maybe a blob? I don't know if beam is, like, they call them plasmoids online. Plasmoids are kind of like the ball lightning you guys just saw, where they can be purple usually, or they kind of go like this, and they fly through the air and they change shape. But that might also be a blob or beam. Beam, I assume, is just like a streak of light or something.
Each UAP class has different characteristics. Some shimmer, some tumble, some spin.
I don't know if I think they did this themselves. This is one of theirs. They haven't said if this is original footage, and I assume it is. But I've seen a couple of the morphing ones online, and it kind of looks like it's AI, but if they're catching it, it's probably not AI. Because AI does this really weird thing where if you're videoing it, it'll kind of, like, because where the AI kind of forgets what it's supposed to look like, and then it'll start, like, popping out limbs in random spots and stuff, and it's pretty easy to see that it's basically not AI, or it's not real anymore, right? It kind of looks like that.
Some look like they're alive and they just fly like a living object in the sky. UAPs are extremely hard to image. What is seen with the naked eye is generally not what
I tried to capture what I thought was one outside, by the way, and all I got was basically just like a blip on my screen. I think I showed it to you guys. It was just like a blip on my screen. If you ever want to figure out how hard it is to videotape something, try to capture something like at night when it's really dark. It is next to impossible. You need like really good cameras for it.
One often spins, tumbles through the sky. Craft looks like a black body. It appears to flash, pulse multiple times per second. There appears to be some kind of cloud or vapor around it. We've seen
zoom out on these. So, like, what would actually help with these, even if you have a blurry up close shot, is like a context shot where you can kind of go in and out. Because you lose context of what you're looking at, because this is like a really zoomed in shot, right?
Be some kind of cloud or vapor around it. We've seen class 1s in formations up to 20.
Looks like a saucer.
Flying in different flight formations, different flock formations.
They classify as tetra as a saucer.
The class 2 is the classic tic-tac. We've seen it in groups of 2 to 3, often flying very erratically. We've seen these a couple years in a row, and usually
cylinders. These are not just called tic-tacs online. There's also called cylinders or tubes. What's another one? Not dowel. There's a couple of them outside of tic-tacs, by the way. They're floating around. Whether or not they're, like, a lot of stuff you find on Twitter is really up in the air on whether or not it's photoshopped or CG, because you can't really tell, right? And that's part of the problem, to be perfectly honest. But like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff, which is also mimicking categories that these are following. But these guys, I'd say, are much more credible than random things you're finding on Twitter or 4chan leaks. All the after the Jake Barber interview with which we covered and then News Nation took down, the Jake Barber interview where he basically talked about the egg UAP. Afterwards, there's a bunch of copycats just all over Twitter, like 4chan. We were just like posting. They also found the Tic Tac UAP, right? They also found it, and you're like, or not the Tic Tac, the egg. And then there's also the meme ones too, where there's a guy in like his, I think one was described as kid's room, where it's basically like him with a boiled egg in like a little sling with a green filter, which is hilarious. But it's not the fact that some of these are actually legitimately very real. It spawns all different sorts, just like the moment that stuff like this pops out. But Tic Tac being one of them. But there's also, or cylinders, Tic Tacs. There's also some on YouTube that look very much like this, and they occasionally pop up. A lot of the best comments, or a lot of the best posts on Twitter, are literally just 1,000 views or less, like 1,000 impressions or less. It's not always stuff that trends, and from what I've seen, there's actively either it's intentionally misleading or misinformation accounts that post AI shit like constantly. And for some reason, they get 5 million views and a bunch of people that just like try to debunk it and go, oh, that's stupid, UAPs are fake, right? Like false flag operation sort of ordeal, which is a shame because, once again, a lot of the best stuff on Twitter doesn't really have any impressions on it. You just go on Twitter and type UAP in the top right box because it doesn't show up on your timeline most of the time. Occasionally it will. Like today, the only reason I know this is here is because I knew about it on 2 days ago. It didn't show up on my timeline at all. Why? I don't fucking know. But UAPs are like one of the hardest things to get in your timeline, and they usually just, most of the time it's kind of AI garbage, or like occasionally it's good stuff, but yeah, like Twitter's just like all over the place. Which is also weird, by the way, because it usually recommends you everything you engage with. And I engage with UFO or UAP topic constantly, right? But it doesn't.
The class 3, the blob.
Like plasmoids?
A pulsing, vibrating cloud. There's something, maybe perhaps a cylinder kind of in the middle that has a different light like a flame.
Yes, like
and then
plasmoids.
it vibrates and pulses as it moves through space. The class 4 is your orb. We've only seen it in infrared. But the class 4 seems
also
to
seen these on
only
Twitter.
come during certain activities in conjunction with perhaps the class 1.
Well, it looks like original footage from them because I haven't seen any of this stuff on Twitter.
The class 5 we call the manta ray. It seems to tumble and rotate as it moves through the sky. Class
The
6
shapeshifters?
is bright star. That one vibrates very, very fast. It literally looks like a crystal in the sky. The class 7 is the jellyfish. It's probably about 2 meters across. The head is
the houseplant.
black in color. And then it has tentacles.
Or the probe droid.
We call the hornet.
Jellyfish. So he mentioned before, I believe in the interview, guys, that the one that's showing in the video is different from the jellyfish UAP from Afghanistan, which is commonly known, which is the one that looks like a probe droid from Star Wars. And we've talked about linkovers between what seems like being seeded in popular culture compared to, which I like. I love bringing this one up, by the way. Compared to. These are actually from the video, I believe from James Corbell. These look like they're enhanced, so AI stuff. This is what it looks like, and if you notice, this looks suspiciously familiar to this guy, right? Very, very, very close. And it might not be necessarily that Steven Spielberg or George Lucas is an alien, as much as maybe he had a conversation with someone that had too much to drink in a bar that told him about a really cool robot that he saw or something he saw flying in the sky, right? Yeah. Every day, LP. Every day. Pretty crazy shit. Very, very curious, but they call them houseplant, or Jake called them a houseplant.
And then it has tentacles. Ears across. The head is purple and black in color. And then it has tentacles. The class 8 we call the hornet. It looks very similar to the class 7, the jellyfish, except for it's bigger, and it's almost like a jellyfish carrying something. And then the Class 9 is the egg. The Class 9 isn't something we have a lot of data on. It's very limited. We have it as Skywatcher during our California event. It's an emerging class, and we have strong evidence that it probably exists, but we don't have data to concisely describe it.
Seems like a Tic Tac or a smaller Tic Tac. I'd put that in the same. Tic Tacs, kind of interesting thing here, guys, is this doesn't even seem like a dichotomy anymore. Like this, you aren't talking about like one alien species. It seems like we got a bunch of weird shit going on our planet, and this is probably multiple different, because as you imagine, there's multiple different races on the planet. Some of these are probably non-NHI, meaning they're probably like wildlife, and then just attracted maybe to technology, EMI, RFI. There's a lot of things, even today, like there's certain insects or bugs that are attracted to sounds or temperatures or frequencies, right? Could be very much the same thing, where some of these things are attracted to kind of technologically advanced races just by pure coincidence. They're attracted to things that emit like EMI or RFI or something along those lines. Who knows, right? There could be a lot of different things that attract them, and some of these seem like they're actually like possibly of the same race. So like the Tic Tacs very much look alike to each other, and if you've seen them also, they describe them like the cylinders. It's like varying sizes of a same sort of vehicle, right? Where you have something that might be made for one person, which might be an egg. You have something that's bigger for like 2 people or 3 people or something, which is 4, which is like a Tic Tac. And then you have the massive cylinders, which are maybe like minivans, right? It kind of all falls into the same sort of, like if you're looking at aesthetics or cosmetically speaking, like they kind of share similar traits with each other, right? And probably of similar species or race or whatever's going on here.
We have our sensor team up on the hill, actively collecting data. We have our psionic team actively operating both day and
I'm just saying, guys, if I want to take this seriously, Jake, if you're listening right now,
we have our psionic
if you've ever played Cyberpunk, these guys need to have Cyberpunk. These guys need to have Cyberpunk outfits and to be sitting there in VR headgear. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out. I mean, putting aside the fact you probably lose credibility for doing it, I think this would be perfectly accurate if these guys were literally chilling in their in their Netrunner gear. Hilarious. How much this is actually in, and basically by the way, psionics, from what I understand, these guys right here fall into a very broad category, which is basically just a lot of it seemingly stems from meditation and ways of like some of this, and it's along the same veins of remote seeing, remote viewing. If you guys have looked into that, it's basically along the same vein of it, which is essentially just comes down to like meditation, right? I wonder what would happen if you put these guys into like a sensory deprivation chamber. You could potentially actually make one. What would happen if, because unfortunately, no matter how much I try, I'm not psionic as far as I know. Or maybe the aliens are suppressing me because I'm too good at it. But what would, or maybe I'm not, actually, if you've listened to some of my past discussions on it. But what would actually happen if you put one of these guys into a sensory deprivation chamber exactly where they are right now? So basically, if you guys have ever seen sensory deprivation chambers, they cut you off from all noise, all sound. Basically, it amounts to lukewarm body water, essentially at the same temperature as yourself. It is basically the most pristine environment you can be in, which is also extremely scary for a lot of people, by the way, and can cause things like PTSD. And you probably have seen them in movies, but what would happen if you put one of these guys in it? So, like, they're basically attuned to everything else around them, because apparently it doesn't even matter if they're... if they can see it or not, as far as I understand. Maybe they need to see it, maybe they need to be able to see stuff. But like, what would actually happen if you put them into a sensory deprivation chamber? Very, very curious. There's also interesting bits for like, I'm reading a book right now called, what was it? Psychic Sexuality or Sexuality of Psychology? I think it's Psychic Sexuality by, what's his name? Something Swan. But basically, it amounts to like they can have a specialized room that is supposedly supposed to accentuate your ability to project yourself, right? Using copper, from what I understand. Haven't completely read it yet, but it's something I'm working on. Books are very difficult for me to read, guys. After Wheel of Time, like nothing really interests me besides having to read for technical reading, because you have to for day-to-day life and a job, right? But anyways, there might be ways of actually experimenting with what these guys are doing with either something like a sensory deprivation chamber, or depending on religions, they have ways of increasing your spirituality, let's call it, or as it's becoming known now as psionics, increasing your psionics or spirituality or whatever is going on there, where you might be able to communicate with something, right? Because they're in a really interesting situation where they're basically being exposed to whatever's nearby, or either by proxy because someone else, maybe the guy over there summoned one, maybe the guy over here summoned one. You know, like just being able, like humans are one of these weird things where, like, you know how we talk about AI, like learning, right? AI learning, it's copying from humans. Humans do the same thing. Like, in order for you to learn something, it is the most difficult thing is to be the first one to learn to do something. Afterwards, a lot of people can learn to do the same thing, which is like online. For instance, if people learn a strategy in video games or in a new exploit or something along those lines, they hide it because they know if people learn it, they'll be able to figure it out really easily, right? And then they'll be able to do it too. But that's also kind of part of being human, is just where you copy or you learn from people around you, right? So just being in proximity, these two guys, assumingly, even if they have different sets of skill sets, might be able to learn off each other and become basically much better trained at whatever they're doing simply by being around another event while it's happening and then being able to figure out what they're looking for, right?
Team actively operating both day and night, and we have 2 helicopters on standby, ready to be deployed.
Yeah, so the nice thing about having helicopters available out here as opposed to drones or airplanes is essentially helicopters can hover for hours at a time, and we can put people on board. You know, our drones are limited in altitude and also in just time on station because of their battery life. We like using the helicopters. We can put multiple people in.
Drones can hover a really long time to get them.
Observation equipment, cameras, etc.
There might be something interesting to be said here about having a human component, because not everything translates through data, right? So it's entirely possible, besides it looks cool, it's entirely possible where you might actually need to be there to, witness something or communicate with it. Maybe you won't even be able to get it on a screen, which is interesting because they said some of the UAPs only show up under infrared, right? So even then you can't see it. Humans can't see it. I think there's some humans that are actually sensitive to infrared. Most people can't see it.
Etc. So it's really useful platform for us.
Oh, the sun is to the
they
east
look cool
right now. We got that little bit of shading right there on the lower left of the target.
Yep.
Which, if that's actual shading, that means the sun's coming from this angle.
Mm-hmm.
So the usual question I get is, where's the evidence? Where's the data? In
Uh-huh.
science, just having data doesn't mean anything. So the reason there is a scientific process
you need data.
is because it works and it's replicable. And it's a standard upon which all science.
I think I looked at the interview for this guy.
By
It's
doing
Gary Nolan, by the way.
using those kinds of approaches here at Skywatcher, we're going to be able to collect the data, get it peer reviewed, not because the peer review tells you that the conclusion is right, but because that allows others to look at what it is that you did and determine whether or not you did it right. So that hasn't been done anywhere yet. It's been done in bits and pieces here or there, but
No
this
one
is
takes
now a comprehensive framework.
No one takes UAPs seriously. It's like, there's weird things to society, guys. Sex is along the same vein as this. The adult industry, no one takes that fucking shit seriously. It is a $1 trillion industry, and it's been around since time began, and there's almost no one that takes that shit seriously. Almost everyone engages in it. Most people find it fun. Or you probably should find it fun if you don't, and you're probably doing something wrong if you don't. But putting that aside, like, it's like one of these things just like basically innately built into people, where you have something like food, which is another id, right? Like with Freud, you have food. We have fucking 5-star Michelin restaurants, right? It's like the food industry is huge, absolutely huge. But then you have weird things like sex, and that's a no-no thing, obviously due to religion connotation sometimes. And all of a sudden it's highly stigmatized and not taken seriously, and arguably could be a lot better, but no one really cares or wants to take it seriously, right? Even though it could be something much more interesting. Not that these guys are doing sex right now, but similar veins, right? Like, where you have UAPs and UFOs, and it's very clear that, like, with, as we mentioned with Egypt, where we talked about with Egypt earlier, or with Skinwalker Ranch, where they have a mesa, it's pretty clear that there's some really weird things going out that are highly focused in one area, but, like, archaeology is legitimately an entire area of study, and they seemingly don't care with what's going on in Egypt, or the people that are there don't care with what's going on in Egypt, which is Very weird. And by the way, Egypt's not the only place, which is why we looked at the video from the Italians with Doppler SAR, right? Why it's such an important technology is because there's actually pyramids all over the globe, right? From a bunch of different races and a bunch of different places that are really, really, really old that all decided to build pyramids at the same time, because why not? All split off from each other, segmented off from each other, and there's no way that they can actually communicate with each other. All split off, all just building their own thing, and the governments really don't pay to excavate or do more than basically the bare minimum. And most things, like, they haven't went out of their way to look underground because it's actually a huge pain in the ass, and you have to have the motivation and money and means to do so, right? But another area of science, and that's actually archaeology, and Egypt is arguably one of the most coolest parts in the world as far as the archaeology goes, and even then they just don't really care. I don't know what's going. Like, life sometimes feels like there are a bunch of people, guys, that are just bots and NPCs, and they don't really care about what's going on around them. And I don't mean that like in a completely offensive term, but where it seems like they're supposed to be doing something, but they just don't. Like, how we talk about when we were playing Rivals, and I just turn around and my entire team's just not doing anything. Like, the AI's turned off. Like, very weird. Very, very weird.
Framework for accomplishing the goal.
Being the first one is the most difficult part, guys.
My name is Marek von Riddenkamp, and I have been covering the UFO or UAP topic for The Hill on the opinion side for about 4 years now. I'm excited to have a discussion on the opinion side for about 4 years now.
So he's an opinion journalist?
I'm excited to have a discussion today with James Fowler, who leads the technology side of Skywatcher and has collected some very, very interesting data that we are going to be taking a closer look at today. James, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Partner?
So we stumbled into this pretty much
Investor,
face planted
maybe?
right on this topic. We didn't want this topic to come into our lives. I'm not a ufologist. I don't believe. I'm not Fox Mulder. I have no faith in UFO, UAP.
I mean, Fox Mulder wanted to believe, but he never really saw things too, like, besides the things he saw, never really had complete proof, right? X-Files is a really, really old show. It always felt weird because it always felt like they're missing out on something. But, like, once again, where we were talking about the probe droids earlier, where it seems like part of our media might be seeded, like, maybe it's supposed to, like, X-Files is supposed to represent the desire to find out more that's beyond what you can normally understand, and you might have to keep looking constantly, right? And not be dissuaded from looking for the truth, right? Very interesting. There's a lot of really, really interesting parallels with our media and essentially what we're going through in modern times.
Stuff. I have no
And kind of
belief
predates it.
in off-planet anything. Frankly, we follow the data, and the data we have indicates that there's probably 3 buckets. There's probably a blue bucket, American-made. There's probably a red bucket, made in China. And there's probably another bucket, which I don't know where that bucket comes from. This isn't a spiritual activity for us. This isn't emotional. This is strictly facts and data driven. And we've tried very hard to keep it that way.
So how did you end
Good.
up
That's
here,
it.
out here in
It's kind of sad that you have to throw all the crazies under the throw all the crazies under the bus. But in UAPs and UFOs, there are a lot of crazies, and one of the problems it's suffered so much from stigma is because of people like that. And it's not necessarily that they're all wrong, or maybe they didn't see something, but like it turns into like a religious cultist experiment, and at that point you can't even separate. Like it makes it very difficult to do science when people immediately discard it because all of a sudden, they think it's religion for someone. It's a cult, right? And that makes it even difficult. Even arguably, sometimes science is a cult. And what I mean by that is sometimes people believe so much in what is already done that they won't actually leave things open for new science, which is pretty insane, right? But the world's flat, right? And then one person says it's round, and they get laughed out of the scientific community, right? I think there's a bunch of different takes on that where it didn't actually happen that way, but it's basically what it amounts to. Is a bunch of people end up with their own solidified focal point on what something is, and they don't leave it open to why can't it be something else, right? Like, we have all these other things. We talk about cheating in video games and how people rationalize the behavior of cheating in video games. There's a lot of human behavior in here. They rationalize what they're doing. They say, like, if you ever discuss why you don't discuss, by the way, cheating in video games ever in game, is because people will always adamantly deny it. The person just plays in his parents' basement 24/7, 365. The third eye Jagan opened, whatever. Anything that is other than the billion-dollar cheating industry for video games, which just basically amounts to a developer breaking a game, right, and making it do something it's not supposed to, because programmers can program a game to do what it's supposed to or break it. Yeah, and that's worth money to someone, which is capitalism, right? But there's a lot of people that will make up their own headcanon as to what something can be to simply avoid anything that isn't hive mind, crowd consensus, agreed on explanation for what's happening. And arguably, those people are also extremely detrimental, and they can be in any area. It's not just in UAPs. It can also be in science, the fact-driven explanations for what goes on around us and what's happening, and figuring out the world so we can turn sand into microprocessors to make a computer, which is a meme nowadays, right? Like, who figured that out sort of ordeal. Really matters, but those people exist everywhere.
Undisclosed location in the desert, looking up
where are they?
at the sky and looking for UAP.
Well, after my career, I started several companies and started running different projects for the government as a subcontractor. And through those activities, we started noting anomalies. And one thing led to another. Now we have what we believe is compelling data on UAPs.
Is there anything else that, at a high level, that really stood out to you that you have observed, you and your team have observed out in the field?
Yeah, sure. So the Class 3 is very spectacular. We've seen the Class 3 as soon as yesterday. We didn't see any today, just Class 7s.
I believe he's using numbers instead of names, which is also making things more difficult. Let's see. Where's the chart? Video guy, we need the chart. Class 3 is the blob, and Class 7 is the jellyfish. You put the little symbol on the screen. Media guy, please.
In
up at the sky, that really
looks like a Pepto-Bismol colored blob in the sky. I don't even know how else to say it. It
Plasmoids.
pulses and vibrates, and I don't know what that means. I don't even know how else to say it.
There it is.
It pulses and vibrates, and I don't know what that means. I don't know.
Not plasmoid.
Why we're seeing that, but it's
actually that might be
in the sky.
The community. The colloquial terms are very vague.
The UAPs to our location, and when we do.
Remember we talked about training psionics, right? Training people. So you have a piece of machinery that can then augment doing something that people might need to learn how to do. So those psionics, those telepathic people that are there, that might be able to summon them, might be able to learn from having something like machinery augmented it, right? Just by being in vicinity or in the area around what's going on.
We get different observations, and the Class 3 is quite spectacular.
So
experience is very important, by the way, for learning.
Maybe a little bit more depth on this dog whistle, this parent capability or technological element that potentially appears to attract UAP.
We have turned on our equipment that we've customized and created what we believe is a dog whistle, and UAPs show up. So through that process, we started a systematic cause and effect.
Once again, they don't explain how they figured it out or where it came from.
Experimentation.
I think in one of the videos, it was, I don't remember which video it was from. It's probably something from News Nation. I think at one point they were explained that this was something used in psionic programs, and this is from my head, by the way. In psionic programs, secret agent programs. One of the guys, I think it was on a News Nation interview, was talking with Ross about it. I don't remember which interview it is, though.
And we've arrived at some very custom capabilities that when we deploy these capabilities, we get different UAP responses. Every time we turn on this equipment and do the things we need to do for the right amount of time, we get a response every time. And we've also experimented with not using the equipment and seeing if we see things, and we have not, which is interesting because all of our data has been daytime. We have no data from night. None of our data are lights in the sky that you have to squint your eyes and put your finger on your nose and hope you see what you want to see. No.
That being said, you can also figure something out from nighttime. They might react differently based on maybe not even the light versus dark, but as opposed to access to sun versus not. Oh, something I want to show you. This has like got no news coverage in any way, shape, or form. Like really fucking weird. Another UAP segue here, guys, that I want to show you guys real quick here. God. Like, I even tag people in it, just no one cares. Shit. I can find it. A lot of really cool stuff in the last... Guys, this year has been astronomically huge. Astronomically huge for UAP's disclosure in general. Check this one out. So this is from another guy, and like the guy's account I looked at, he's pretty crazy. But he did find this, and this is actually really, really cool. So, and people are trying to debunk this, by the way. People are trying to debunk this by saying it's a fly, which is beyond absolutely insane. So this is from sun data. This is part of the sun right here. That's not going to help you guys. This is part of the sun, right? This is taken from, well, this is the person's account. Where is it? What is it called? HelioViewer, which is basically, they take pictures of the sun. There's satellites that literally take pictures of the sun. And what they did is they found out this exists on the sun between these years. I looked it up myself. It does exist in the official photos. This isn't made up. This triangle exists next to the sun. This is not something on the sun. You can tell from the photos, by the way. Next to the sun for 3 years. Basically, where they take a picture like every day. This was just floating by the sun through different filters or like looking at different things for sun flares and whatnot. This guy was just sitting here floating in basically the same spot on the sun for years. There's astronomers. There's astronomers, guys, that look at this shit, right? They look at the sun. There's literally people that put this satellite up there. How did they not see this and talk about it? Like, I was looking for data on it. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. There's no UFOs. There's no Reddit. Nothing. No one pointed it out other than seeing this just now. No one pointed this out. It does exist. Once again, go to the HelioViewer and look at between the dates. Let's see. Between 2019 and 2022. And it's there. It's 100% there on HelioViewer. It's not an artifact. It doesn't just disappear, besides after, like, 3 years. It's there. How does no one notice this or even talk about it? I don't know. This literally looks like... this. By the way, this is huge. The sun itself is gigantic. That's what she said. The sun itself is gigantic. This guy right here is about the size of Earth. And now there's some posts on Reddit about it because it popped up. Part of this popping up, though, no one was talking about it. There's people looking at the sun every day, right? How did they not notice this thing? I don't know. Where was it? I don't know. But they weren't talking about it. They weren't noticing it. This guy was sitting there floating for 3 years. Right? And it doesn't disintegrate. The heat doesn't burn it up. And obviously, by the way, if you're trying to tinfoil hat here, so tinfoil hat with me for a little bit here. If you're trying to make up some sort of explanation for this, if you have a starbase, one of the easiest forms of energy is literally what we use, which is solar, right? And you can imagine an advanced form of solar. Good morning, Idwin. Yeah, we're looking at the new Skywatcher Ranch video. And I'm talking about this guy right here, which is very weird. How no one noticed. This isn't one day. This isn't just a photo of a day. This is here every day for 3 years, between 2019 and 2022. It was just there, floating around. It's not the same location either. It's not a blotch on the lens of the satellite, maybe. It's just been there floating around, like right outside the sun for 3 years. And then it just disappeared. Yeah, it's not a fly. This is in space, mind you. These are satellites in space. And I pinged some people when it popped up on Twitter. No one responded to it. Like something like this would be like, oh, that's just a grain of sand or something. The prosaic explanations that just pop up, right? But how... Oh, Jesus Christ. How the fuck was that there? How was it there, guys? And just no one noticed or talked about it for 3 years. It almost feels like some of this stuff's retconned. Like, it's just like, hey, let's add some more to their story just now. Like, like this is there all the entire time, just no one noticed it. How can people have their job and not notice this thing, right? Like, I haven't heard a single prosaic explanation for this besides it's a fly in space. Which is conveniently also aligned perfectly between the satellite and the sun and the rotation of our planet around the sun. Because we have satellites around our planet that are circling the sun. Like, as our Earth goes around the sun, they have satellites on the planet, side of the planet going around the sun while looking at the sun itself. Three years. It was there for 3 years every fucking day, guys. The side of the sun. What is that? How at this point in time, how do you even describe that besides saying that's probably a space station flying around? Like, it just, yeah. Yeah, that's, you know how remember how we were talking earlier about having different races, right? So we have the Tic Tacs, whatever the race the Tic Tacs are. We had 1017. We have the Tic Tacs, and then you have the Tetras, which are the triangle ones, which also might be boomerangs, by the way. I guess they classify the boomerangs as manta rays now. But you have pyramids, or excuse me, the triangles, which are also very common. So you have like two different races already that seemingly are emerging. You have the Tic Tacs, and then you have the triangles. As far as like, because there's a bunch of different videos, essentially, of triangles, and then there's a bunch of different ones of Tic Tacs of various sizes. Basically, they're all rods, increase and decrease in size, and the smallest one seems to be an egg. And then you have the triangle, right? This guy right here is a triangle. This literally looks like if you're... you know how we criticize Marvel Rivals for... what are they called? The Wakanda Empire built like a giant fucking floating head in space, and you're like, why would you do that? If people like if you have a race that really likes their goddamn triangles, they're going to make a space station that probably looks like a triangle because they like their triangles, right? What is this guy floating right outside the sun? It's a fucking triangle. It's just like, it literally looks like a floating space station, guys. That's a triangle. And it's close enough to the sun where probably, once again, there's some sort of advanced form of propulsion. By the way, if you're looking down here in the bottom left, you can see the dates rolling by. As basically it's taken, you can literally use as it goes through the different cameras. I don't know exactly how the camera works that takes pictures of the sun. So, like, this is where you need an expert to chime in. Experts don't talk about this. Why? I don't know, but they don't. This is where this is the camera. It has an artifact in that position because they knew when they made it or some stupid shit like that. But it's not because it moves around. So this is clearly in orbit or in a positioned orbit that is relative to our own planet. Because basically it's being taken photos of essentially every day. And it's always relative to our planet. So it's probably communicating with us or something here. Assumingly. Something that's, a direct line of communication. Because I'm assuming that if it's... like out of sight, it might not be able to. This guy probably went whoopsie doodle. They're figuring it out, and then they went on the other side of the sun, which there's no way for us to actually figure that out. Just like the dark side of the moon, you could have something in orbit around the other side of the planet, so we'd never be able to figure it out at all, in any way, shape, or form. Also, speaking of Tic Tacs, when maybe not really white though, right? Well, actually, we never really saw it with our naked eye, which was Oumuamua, the cylinder that went through our solar system 4 years ago, 2020, I think it was. They went through our solar system. It took like 9 months to go through our solar system and clearly was not an asteroid. Also, probably a Tic Tac mothership. But you got this guy here. He's just floating around the sun, guys. There's literally astrologists. There's people that look at like planets all the time, and this guy's just sitting there floating, and no one's like, hey, this has been here for like a week. What is this doing? And other guy's like, hey, that's kind of weird. What is this doing? Why don't we talk to someone and figure this out? And like, hey, like, we have this weird artifact on the satellite. Why don't you guys take a look at this right now, And then you dial up the phone, and you're like, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with the satellite. So what is that? And then like maybe we should send a probe over there to see what it is. This is over the course of 3 years, so this is a long time. And in the course of 3 years, no one fucking noticed this? Like, there isn't, like, normally even the UAP committee, when they find stuff, they'll start talking about it, but there isn't anything. There's nothing at all about this. Up until, basically, was this April 5th, so 3 days ago? This didn't exist at all on anyone's radar. This is 3 years worth of data you're looking at here in, like, 10-second clips. Yeah, no one noticed or cared at all enough to figure it out. Like, we were talking about the pyramid tubes, right? How does this stuff happen where there's literally people whose job it is to look at this stuff and they don't go, well, that's, you know, that's been there a while. Why is it still there? You know, like, isn't there just a guy, like, going like this with his, like, photo viewer because he's bored? You know, like with the sun? Like, hey, why is a dot floating around, you know? One of those things? This is basically what it amounts to. Why is it still there? Like, image recognition, right? How did that not happen? I don't know. I don't fucking know how this guy was floating around there for 3 years, guys, and literally no one gave a shit. I don't get this. I don't get life at all. I really, really don't. Pretty crazy stuff. But this one, like, there's a lot of, like I said, in this last year, we have gotten an unprecedented amount of information, even if it's not full disclosure. We have gotten so much stuff. Normally it's just like the congressional UAP hearing and that's it. Maybe there's like another major UFO thing, right? We got, I don't even know what to start, like, usually as like classifying milestones, right? But we got the New Jersey UAPs, we got the congressional UAP hearing, we got Skywatcher Ranch, Skywatcher Ranch. Yeah, lots. And then Disclosure Task Force. Lots of stuff happening very, very fast where this stuff wasn't even on the radar besides, you know, people that have very, very specific hobbies. It was, you know, maybe you see something once every couple years. It's like, really, wow, what's this sort of thing? Like, what's his name? There's the documentary that people keep telling me to, Bob Lazar, keep telling me to look at. Yeah. And you're like, wow. But this is literally, like, this blows my mind. It's not so much because it just popped up, but rather still, this is like a major failure of someone's job that would have seen this and literally just didn't do anything about it, right? This is someone's job to look at photos of the sun from the multi-million-dollar satellite they put in space, right? And they don't. Where's NASA on this? Like, you know, no, it's a fly on the lens that got caked into the, the optics when it was built. You're like, all right. This is probably my new favorite one. This is my new favorite UAP, guys. Out of everything I've seen recently, the ball lightning we showed earlier, that was another one, which is very certain it's not AI. Very certain it's not AI. The ball lightning was also up there because people are just, you know, calling it ball lightning, but it very clearly was not. Guy. Right here. Which, once again, I think ball lightning is just a colloquial term science uses to describe something, an unknown phenomenon that we really don't understand. But this is probably what happens when a plasmoid or NHI or maybe wildlife is struck by lightning. And then it just kind of loses, you know, whatever it's doing. Either a piece of machinery or an organism that just kind of forgets what it is. As it turns out, getting struck by lightning is probably very detrimental. So, yeah, this guy. What is this, guys? Yep. This is up there, and it's not purely because of what it is, because it's still just a tiny splotch, right? It's not purely because of what it is, and now we don't know where it went, because this is 2022, right? We don't know where it went. So we can't go back in time and, like, you know, research it more, besides, like, seeing these photos, and maybe someone knows more from a astronomy angle. Yeah, it just uses there, and no one noticed for 3 years. Just how does that happen? 3 fucking years. And once again, you can go to heliosviewer.org and you can look up the dates and you can see it's there for yourself. So it's not made up. It's not like outside of actual official material. It's not something that people are doing for views or clicks, although she probably is, or he probably is. But outside of it, like, this is... And it hasn't blown up. Like, I even pinged... What is this shit, guys? I even pinged, like, some, you know, like, conspiracy theorist accounts. I even pinged them in the comments. They don't even fucking respond to it. Why? I don't know. You explain to me, guys. You fucking explain to me. Anyways, segue of a segue, guys.
It's broad daylight. Every time.
But that's legitimate data for 3 years, and no one cares.
We have not. which is interesting because all of our data has been daytime. We have no data from night. None of our data are light.
It's like scientists don't want to actually deal with the idea it's something they don't know.
And hope you see what you want to see. No, our data.
Not my job to figure it out or something.
Often well lit like this, maybe in a desert.
Hey, that's right outside the sun. That's very well lit.
Very viewable. We've had over 300 sorties now of UAP incursions.
By the way, the only account I've actually seen posting that is normally stuff in the UAP community just like floats around everywhere. And the only post I've seen so far posting that is Jenny UFO or whatever her name is. That's it. Which is from another guy. I don't know where they actually got it from, like Reddit or something. From another guy. And that's it. There's no other, push for it or people talking about it in general. That's just it.
For the benefit of the audience, that's an individual flight over that you tracked with your sensors.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I call a sortie when we have an observation of a class of UAP moving through airspace. That class might be in a flock. We've seen flocks of up to 20 plus. And we also have singletons that move through. Like today we had 2 class.
Where's the information going, Slane?
So each one by itself would be a sortie. So we've seen hundreds of UAPs. Perhaps we're running an event and we have 200 sorties in a day. We don't know if that's
or photos and videos, guys.
Seen 109 times more, or if that's 200 separate airframes or aircraft or UAPs or whatever they are moving through our airspace separately. So we just call it a sortie and accept what we don't know, and accept that hey, as an observation from a technology perspective and science perspective, this is one set of data.
So, I'd like to maybe turn now to and acknowledge the skeptics out there. It's good to be skeptical. You want to be skeptical.
Why aren't we seeing photos of 200 of these things flying through there?
Incidents that a lot of what people were seeing were just normal planes in the sky, right? If you turn on the news, almost all the footage was commercial airliners. We know that, right? Anybody who's seen it.
We've talked about this before, guys. It doesn't matter with the New Jersey UAPs. It doesn't matter how many are misidentified aircraft or balloons or prosaic explanations. All it takes is the ones that aren't explainable. That's it. That's all it is. It doesn't matter how many are explained away, because that one or couple that you see just changes everything. That's because they aren't aircraft. They aren't things that you can actually just go, oh, that's like a Cessna or something flying through the air, right?
Or knows what they're looking at can say that. When you're doing your analyses or you're tracking an object live, are you accounting for wind? Are you accounting for, let's start with wind.
So yes, we do look at the wind. We don't look that hard at it. A lot of these objects are moving faster than the wind. A lot of them will do maneuvers such as the tic-tacs. We see them come straight down as if from space, tumbling and spinning, at Mach 2+. It's important to note that all of the classes, every single one of them, we have characteristics that are unexplainable with current human technology.
This is Skywatcher Ranch, which once again, they need to nail down what exactly they do. But essentially, I think their mission statement is air intelligence gathering, I think is kind of what it comes down to. But essentially, they're like an organization that's actually looking for UAPs and or summoning UAPs, which is, it's really, really weird stuff.
Current understanding of nature. So it just so happens that to track hypersonics, to track stealth, to track drones in non-ideal conditions or aircraft in non-ideal conditions is the same technology you need to track UAPs. By building the system net new and calling it Skywatcher, that's what we've done. We've architected, designed, and are building and soon integrating this next generation technology. So we're to track stealth, to track drones and non-stealth. We have characteristics that are unexplainable with current human technology and our current understanding of nature. So it just so happens that
Hey Slane, have you seen the space station outside the sun that's been flying around for 3 years between 2019 and 2022? I have a cracked lip right now, so I can't smile too big, but holy fucking shit. 3 years, flying around basically the sun in an orbit that was always facing us to the sun. Was this guy? It's hot. You're still a believer, yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to discount this stuff. This is someone's job, and like I said before, not only was it never mentioned, no one's debunked it. And it should be very easy to debunk, right? And I haven't seen anything. Why? This is a big fucking flag. I mean, it's literally the size of Earth in orbit, and it clearly looks like it has a very specific orbit that's in, what do you even call it, where it's facing the Earth. When we're orbiting the sun, it's always facing the Earth, right? It's just there. No one cares. Like, literally no one's cared. This is 3 days ago. This popped up on my Twitter feed. No one fucking cared about this. It's just literally there. It's a fly. I mean, that's what they said. It's a fly. And you're like, there aren't fucking flies in space. Like, what, did they fucking put a fly in front of in an exact orbit in front, which you can't maintain, by the way, without some sort of thrusters. In an exact orbit, literally right in front of the satellite in space. Like, I mean, flies are assholes, but that's one dedicated fly to go to space and then get in front of this this satellite that's taking a picture of the sun, right? Anyone at all? Triangle, yeah. This guy right here. This is between 2019 and 2022. What is it? Like, we were like with the Afghanistan sphere, right? That they showed on the Arrow website, right? One of my favorites that I like showing to people because you can't explain it. The medicine ball thrown out of a paratrooper aircraft as they're debating the Reaper drone. Yeah, and getting a nice rotation so it kind of like slides through the air, when it's coming down. There aren't paratroopers in space, guys. Like, people giggling while doing this. Maybe it's... I actually, like, at this point, guys, it actually feels an awful lot. Musk actually made I think he made a joke at one point that what aliens want out of us is memes, right? Like, the episode of Rick and Morty, where the alien heads come to Earth and go, show me what you got. It kind of feels an awful lot like we're on some sort of meme show at this point. It's God getting a tan. It's a triangle. Like I said, this is the triangle art. Like, I want to call them an actual faction or race, because they like the triangle ships, and there are definitely distinctly morphologies that are triangles, and this looks like a triangle. This looks small, guys, but that's the sun, so it is literally about the size of Earth. That's literally a triangle that's the size of Earth that's in a geosynchronous orbit, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, between us and the sun. That's been floating around there. It was floating around there. It's no longer there. Between 2019 and 2022. And this is publicly available. It's on helioviewer.org, which is a website, I guess, that takes displays for the public photos of the sun that they take. It's just been there. And, like, there's God, this is so stupid saying this. There's literally someone's job that is to look at these photos, and they just aren't like, well, this is a blotch on a lens or something, right? But it moves around, so it's not on the lens, because it's always aligned with the sun. Like, what do you even go with, guys? And like I said, the weirdest thing about this is we have billions of people on Earth, and billions of people on Earth, and it wasn't until 3 days ago that someone was like, hey, what is that? Like, it's someone's job to literally look at these photos of the telescope that's looking at the satellite that's looking at the sun, and they didn't go like, well, what is that, right? I mean, it's tough. What do they say? It's hard finding good help. I get that, but there's assumedly someone with a PhD that's looking at this, right? They know something I don't. So this actually, maybe this is a little bit better view, but like, once again, this is the sun, and it looks really small, but that's literally the size of Earth that's floating in front of the sun right now. We're still single. Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. And then we got the ball lightning. That's the delusional ball lightning that's floating through the air. Unreal.
Come straight down as if from space, tumbling and spinning, at Mach 2+. It's important to note that all of the classes, every single one of them, we have characteristics that are unexplainable with current human technology and our current understanding of certain, and we don't look that hard at it a lot.
Or knows what they're looking at can say that. When you're doing your analyses or you're tracking an object live, are you accounting for wind? Are you accounting for, let's start with wind.
So yes, we do look at the wind. We don't look that hard at it. A lot of these objects are moving faster than the wind. A lot of them will do maneuvers such as the Tic Tacs. We see them come straight down as if from space, tumbling and spinning, you know, at Mach 2+. It's important to note that all of the classes, every single one of them, we have characteristics that are unexplainable with current human technology and our current understanding of.
So, where Arrow debunks, so Arrow being the government agency that's supposed to resolve unknown UAPs, where Arrow debunks stuff and goes, oh, hey, look, all this stuff here we can't explain. Here you guys can look at it now, or this stuff we can't explain. Here, look at it now, which arguably some of them that they've released recently very clearly are not explainable, even with their explanation in their paper. Very clearly not explainable. They're literally looking at the ones that, hey, this isn't a paper bag. Like, if you look at some of the photos that they had at the beginning, or videos they had at the beginning here, you know, like, none of these I think you could actually explain away that they showed.
So,
but they need more footage. Where's the uncut footage of just a bunch of them, just like
drones in non-ideal conditions or aircraft in non-ideal conditions, is the same technology you need to track UAPs. By building,
I want to see the drone swarm.
Net New and calling it Skywatcher, that's what we've done. We've architected, designed, and are building, and soon integrating this next generation technology. So we're actively working with and seeking more third-party, non-ufologists, physicists, scientists, academia. We want them to come and analyze our data.
Are we talking about people that aren't solidified in the scientific community, thinking that because current science can't explain it, therefore it doesn't exist? The cultists, the science cultists, you know, you look for the people that are actually doing science, and they're like, hey, I don't know what this is, maybe we should figure it out. Like, much... Hey guys, I don't know what this is, maybe we should figure this out. Where are those guys? They're in science. That's like their entire job, isn't it? That's their entire job. Hey guys, there is a massive triangle the size of Earth floating around the sun in a geosynchronous orbit with us. What is this? I don't know, hey, Harry. Maybe we should call the higher-ups here. Maybe we should get them on the horn. You know, like write a paper or something. What the fuck's going on here?
Produce third-party independent analysis.
And to be clear, James, these individuals would be privy to the sensitive data that you're...
I mean, it's there for 3 years, so for it to maintain that, satellites actually do actively try to maintain their orbit if they start to degrade so they don't fall out of the sky, right? You can get into a perfectly synchronous orbit, but that would literally have to be a piece of debris, but it moves around too, so it'd have to be a piece of debris between the satellite floating around the Earth. Well, imagine this is the Earth. The satellite floating around the Earth, and the sun is over here, while the Earth is circling the sun, and this piece of debris is always in front of the satellite looking at the sun. And, or I guess maybe it's pointing at the sun at a certain time of day and it takes a picture, so maybe it's still there going around the planet Earth, right? But this little piece of debris, if you look at the sun, because it's always focused directly on the sun, it moves around, and if it's moving around, it's going to fly out. Like, it doesn't actually just maintain a perfect, like, it's not even perfect, a relative position in front of the camera. If it's already moving, it's going to fly off into space, or it's going to fly into the planet, or it's going to hit the satellite and bounce off. It wouldn't actually be possible because of the way this is moving. If it was a speck on the lens or something on the actual satellite itself, it wouldn't move at all, relative to the sun, because it's always the satellite is always pointed at the sun here, right? This guy wouldn't be moving around right here because then it'd just fly off. There's nothing stopping it from being there. There's no way for it to actually maintain, because it is actually moving around, like relative to the sun. If you notice, like the sun here, because the camera's always focused on the satellite's always focused on the sun, you can see it actually changing positions. It can't actually be something between the sun and the satellite. It wouldn't actually work. It wouldn't be that. And if this is orbiting the sun, like it was like an asteroid or something orbiting the sun, it wouldn't be relative to us all the time. So it's intentionally maintaining orbit basically in this vicinity of the sun. Intelligently maintaining orbit in that vicinity of the sun. I mean, it's like tinfoil hat, NHI hat, UAP hat. My guess is it's an advanced form of energy generation, right? Sun generates a gigantic amount of energy. We can only harness a portion of it with solar power, and in space you even get even more energy, which I believe China's even toying. You know how SimCity used to be able to build solar collectors, which would beam high energy microwave down to the planet from a solar installation in the sky in orbit? China's actually considering doing that. Yeah, China's actually considering doing that. Now imagine you had a space station the size of the Earth that was literally next to the sun, well, ish next to the sun. It's still pretty decently far away, and I can't judge, distance based on what it looks like in the photo compared to where the satellite is. You'd actually need to have some sort of a degree to figure that out. But it's actually close enough where, like, the amount of energy that the sun's emitting would be ginormous, right? That would be an insanely, assuming it can take the heat, would be an insanely easy source of energy for long-term space exploration, right? As a starship. Just like hovering, or not starship, star base, just like sitting and hanging around loitering, they can literally just refill forever. It's like, why would you need a fusion reactor? I mean, obviously you'd want something like that, but it doesn't mean you'd have access to something like that, especially on that scale. The amount you could probably, I don't know who'd be able to do that, but if you can imagine the planet of the sun, or the something the size of Earth that close to the sun, you could be able to figure out the amount of energy generation that would hit that thing in proximity of the sun and how close it is, assuming the face of it was hitting the sun and the whole side is collection, right? You could probably figure out exactly how much energy it's generating, which would be redonkulous that close to the sun. Yeah, and you still get sunburned or, like, I mean, solar panels aren't even unheard of, but like, we're right now, guys. And how long have solar panels been around for us? Like 50 years? I mean, they've probably been around longer than that. But like, commercial solar has been only around for like 40 years, right? 50 years? 40? Commercial solar has only been around for 40 years. Now imagine it doing that, but also much better at doing that. Like, 100% collection, right? It would be insane. I don't know how they store that energy. Good question, but we already have lithium, and like our scientific achievements have been like majority of our major scientific achievements, even though our civilization has been around for thousands of years or tens of thousands if you want to look at just humans in general, right? The majority of our technological innovation has only been in the last 100 years, or even less than that, 50 years. We have pocket computers, right? Insane, absolutely insane.
It would just be in a controlled environment where
I'm sure you could figure it out in another 100.
They just produced a report and anything redacted for release.
That is an insightful and I think a very important element to highlight here, and I'd like to turn this into a public service announcement that anybody watching who may be an expert in,
I'm not a scientist, sorry guys,
who has an interest in this topic now,
I'm interested.
Watching this.
I mean, I have common sense. I have enough common sense to go, hey, if you're a scientist, what the fuck is this? Maybe you should post on it and debunk it. Like, maybe I should ask for a community note on that. I don't think... Let's do that. I'm actually kind of curious now. Let me try and community note because I can ask for him. Ask for a community note on this. Request community note. Nothing personal about that. Shit, guys. What's scientists? What is that, scientists? Tell me. That should be very, very easy to debunk as someone that knows what's going on in space right now. I don't know, but like there's only so many things it can be, right?
It would just be in a controlled environment where they don't take all the data with them. They just produce a report and anything redacted for release.
That is an insightful and I think a
why do they want to redact stuff?
Important element to highlight here, and I'd like to turn this into a public service announcement that anybody watching who may be an expert, an academic, who has an interest in this topic now after watching this, to reach out to Skywatcher and to, if you have the bandwidth and ability, to lend your services. I know the team would very much appreciate that and respect that, and I think an objective third-party analysis would really move the discussion forward.
I'm an expert in pseudoscience too. Action shot, B-roll footage.
An operation like this, I think, is a pretty unique operation. It's giving us the opportunity, one, to collect data on this phenomenon, the reality of this phenomenon. It's also giving us the opportunity to test out some theories as well. I would say the most significant encounter that I've had here was probably
A2?
Interacting with the...
doesn't want his name out there.
Every day,
But he's a manager at
we've
Kinko's.
identified some form of jellyfish UAP that seems to be attracted to our machine calling system. Every day,
So, dog
the
whistle.
jellyfish has gotten pretty close to the radar, and yesterday it was so close that the team there could actually see it with their naked eye.
It looked like a cylinder, but when we got under some power with magnification, it looked more like a class 7 or jellyfish. Tip of it being super, super bright and reflective.
Not a Tic Tac.
Whatever was hanging off the bottom of it was, you know, not really easy to see, but you can
House
see
plant?
there was something floating beneath it. You
Or a probe droid.
Heading, class 7.
So I want to say there's actually differentiation between the two, because the Afghan jellyfish, as they're known, which even though the James Corbell footage is probably the most prolific, apparently, according to people that were in Afghanistan, said that they're relatively common for people to see them, and they just didn't know what they are, and they never really reported them, because as it turns out, there's a giant stigma associated with being crazy and seeing UFOs and UAPs. So, weird how that works, how we didn't actually take people seriously that saw this stuff up until, what, the congressional UAP hearing in 21, I think it was, and then Arrow formed in 22. Yeah, crazy how we didn't take that seriously. But the Afghan jellyfish, as it's called, is different from the jellyfish that they're talking about. The Afghan jellyfish literally looks like something that's mechanical, that's flying with basically, mechanical bits on it, right? Like arms or legs or something. Or the one that they're talking about based on the News Nation report, so a little bit ahead of the video here, is more like an actual organic. So they didn't really differentiate between the two in their list, but obviously a big difference is between something that appears that it can be alive versus something that appears as though it's mechanical, right? Pretty big difference between the two, because one would imply that it's artificial or something that may have been artificial and now it's intelligent, such as AI, or something that is now, like organically, made that could be conceived somewhere, such as an actual jellyfish, right?
It's a game of chess, right? They're actually probing us to validate our capabilities.
Ah.
If this is an advanced species and is smart enough to do what it's doing, they have the upper hand, and we are the little ants under the magnifying glass.
I mean,
we had a class 7 UAP. We went.
Just because you go to the zoo to look at the wildlife doesn't mean you think they're ants, right? Come on now. A little bit more faith in humanity here. Maybe we're a monkey or a tiger or something. It's not. You go to the zoo for a lot of different reasons.
Went ahead and launched the helo to pursue it. Before the helo got here, it actually came and hovered right over us. For the first time, we saw a Class 7 with the naked eye. It was very glinty, looked metallic. Through our optics, we've always thought it was purple or black. Frankly, the reflections, it looked like chrome almost color.
Looking to the east,
a lot of older morphologies, as Arrow called them, morphologies, so how they're classified. A lot of flying saucer-ish aircraft, so spheres are oftentimes, like Tic Tacs are uniquely, it seems almost like ceramic, or if you ever notice like the glaze on ceramic, right? It seems like they look that way in videos, like ceramic white, where the triangles seem almost like different civilizations, once again, seem almost like jet black with propulsion, all them engines underneath it. Yeah, and then you got...
Frankly, the reflections look like chrome almost color.
Or, excuse me, you have like spheres. I forgot where I was going with that. You have like spheres that have like a metallic chrome finish to them, kind of like classic sci-fi look, which is probably, once again, invading media or seeding in media, which has been around for a long time, right? The classic 60s sci-fi trope for UAPs and UFOs, right?
East, looking to the east.
You got walkies.
Heading around 60 acres.
It's probably 4,000 feet above us, about maybe 1 kilometer out, horizontal distance above the ground, and it looked like 8 meters total in distance from top to bottom.
I want to point out, well, they're trying their best, right? Well, they're trying their best. If you guys have looked at Starship launches, which we cover every time there happens one or it explodes or whatever, because it's honestly really, really cool stepping stone. Also something that's chrome. It's not actually chrome, stainless. If you look at some of the Starship launches, the footage quality has improved immensely from the first Starship launch. And just talking about the media format, and they have gotten so good that they can track Starship miles up in the atmosphere Well, it's basically going full tilt. So the technology is there. It's probably extremely expensive. Just the same way that you can actually capture bullets. You can actually capture the projectile flying in real time of an actual, like, a bullet when it's fired, right? Which is absolutely insane. So the technology is there, whether or not they have access to it or the ability to use it. It does exist because, you know, once again, Starship is using it, or, SpaceX is using it.
The top will look like a mushroom, like a big jellyfish. It's very, very, very bright white.
Okay. So what they're saying is obviously it looks a little bit different apparently than what they saw in real life. Is it looks like it has kind of like little tendrils or legs coming off of it, and it looks more like a head, but it's also metallic.
Will look like a mushroom, like a big jellyfish. It's very, very, very bright white and vibrating and flashing, like pulsing. There was like 3 flashing panels, like equal distance going down it. I've seen some the last couple of days through a sensor. So I'd seen them before, so it wasn't like shocking, but it was, you know, kind of taken back to be like, oh wow, really am seeing one, you know, with my actual visual eyes, you know, right here, right above me at 4,000 feet. It looked like a jumper under canopy at 4,000 feet, which is the same distance when they pull. So that part is crazy. Then I knew, like.
So a parachuter, so someone coming out of an aircraft parachuting, the distance at which they open up their parachute, right? Obviously, you got to dumb a little bit of the stuff down. Military jargon.
You know, I'm not seeing stuff. There it is. It's the same thing that I've been seeing on sensor, and all the characteristics, you know, were consistent with what a Class 7 should look like.
FLIR? Where's their FLIR data? Radar, FLIR, come on.
The
FLIR
Class
is
7
infrared.
is a jellyfish. It's not the jellyfish you've seen on TV. It's a different jellyfish. We think the head of the jellyfish is about 2 meters in size. We think the tentacles hang down
organic.
about 3 to 5 meters in size, varying and depending on which one you're looking at. You can see these stills are taken from different jellyfish. You can see this jellyfish, the tentacles look very, very long. On this one, they look shorter compared to the head. As you can see, the nodules on the tentacles light up. And again, this light appears to us to go from head to tail and pulse and light up the nodules as it goes. Also, sometimes it looks like an automaton or something with like an alien movie where it's got like the tail kind of hanging out, like it's seeking something. And sometimes it looks like it's a jellyfish.
They move around, and they've gotten to the point where they've already debunked, at the beginning of the video we covered this already, or they covered it already, which is they already debunked the prosaic explanations for this stuff, such as balloons, based on wind speed and their movement patterns.
It seems to undulate as it moves. We have seen these take direct flight paths.
So, I want to say, if there weren't people basically verifying it with multiple eyes and corroborating exactly what they're seeing, you could very easily pass it off as a Mylar balloon, couldn't you? And very easily to pass it off also at 4,000 feet and moving erratically with nothing to do with the wind, or not erratically, intelligently, nothing to do with the wind.
Even yesterday, for the first time, we had 2 in formation. We've never seen that before. We chased down one of those 2, and it deviated its flight path as we approximated, and then it elevated directly straight up, as in directly vertical. So the Class 7 is very hard to image, and at distance, it looks very similar to the Class 6, and also the Class 8 at distance. So
these guys are pretty cool, which is they look like crystals that morph in the air.
What you're going to see is it's kind of, I'll call it swimming in through the sky. There aren't a lot of exotic colors. There is reflectivity, but that color you see right there is very akin to the Class 6 when it's not emitting high energy or whatever it's doing. So when it's not vibrating. So we don't know what that means. And you can kind of start to see now the tentacles hanging down as it moves. In IR, they're very obvious. They're less obvious in EO. So we have multiple indications that this is a real object.
There you go, Slane. So pretty hot comparably to the background.
That's not man-made, and that it is flying through our airspace. And
also a FLIR. Where's the radar? So one thing that's kind of interesting that I've brought up multiple times as far as UAPs go, guys, and something that people, arguably if you're doing something like this, if you guys didn't know, the National Weather Service has Doppler. It used to be a big thing in the 90s where everyone talked about it. Has Doppler all over the U.S. And the way it works is the National Weather Service is basically open to essentially anyone to use their data. And the reason they do that is for accessibility instead of it being some proprietary system that only one weather forecasting channel has, in addition to providing early warning. But Doppler is literally everywhere. It covers almost the entire continental United States. It is everywhere, and it is sensitive enough where it detects detect air movement through radar pulses. It's basically like sonar. It's sensitive enough where it can actually detect bird flocks as they come off of trees. No one's actually put it together to kind of try and figure out if they could actually use it to look for stuff like this, by the way, and I don't even know it's possible. It definitely have a forward-facing... This is where all the, like, the... I don't want to call them eggheads because I'd like to think I'm smart, but this is where people that are actually relatively smart when it comes to programming would be able to figure out whether or not you can actually pull this data from the Doppler network. And the more advanced version of that is it NORAD? NexRad, which is the newer version of Doppler radar, which is also being deployed. Let's see. Base reflectivity. Normally, like, the Doppler radar actually weeds this stuff out, but you can actually see flocks of birds as they disperse. Actually really cool shit. Normally when the weather, the weather casting, your news channel, or you look at a website for weather, they weed all this stuff out with algorithms to make sure you aren't seeing it, but it does exist. It's actually there in the data. Makes me wonder if something like these UAPs would actually show up on Doppler radar, assuming, well, they said they're in the middle of nowhere in the desert, so that maybe not be the best coverage for Doppler radar. However, it might actually be in the vicinity of one of the Doppler radar, because it's everywhere in the U.S. It's also, once again, where there's UAP tracking apps that are now coming out for your phone, and some of them cross-reference with airplane flights, because FAA records generally everything, except for FAA-authorized drones. Records almost everything. You can actually compare it to, flight paths of known aircraft, right? And weed them out immediately. In this case, you potentially could make an app that would be able to figure out what exactly is going on there, and you see if you can see it on Doppler radar, which is very accessible because the entire system already exists, and there's almost no investment besides someone that actually have to figure out whether or not it can pull the data and whether or not it can use the data in real time, right? Which would actually be very, very incredible. That'd be actually phenomenal. That'd be, but no one's done this. Once again, there is someone whose job it is to literally look at the sun, guys, and look at these photos. There's a triangle that was floating outside of it for 3 years, and no one talked about it. And even the guys that are doing it never like, look at this, we know what it is, Nope, just never happened, guys.
At the end of day 2, our psionic team...
I do have to take a piss, by the way.
Bold prediction.
Uh-oh. Butt clencher, guys. I gotta use the bathroom real quick here. There's a bold prediction. 1 second. All right. Camping.
That the next day, we would see an interaction between two different types of UAPs in the sky.
The Class 7s, we believe, are aggressive. They
Uh-oh.
appear to want to encroach on us and get over us. The Class 5 we saw yesterday seemed to put itself between us and the Class 7 and the...
Aggressive implies hostility. I think what he's meaning is assertive, or maybe it's aggressive, in terms of... Because you could have something that's interested in you, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's hostile, right? But a lot of people assume when something is classified as aggressive, it means it's going to do harm to you, right? And that's not necessarily the... I guess a different definition of what aggression actually means, right?
Class 7 then egressed to the north and the east. Let's do like an 11:10 startup. How long can you idle on the ground?
Yeah.
Like 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Done.
On day 3, around noon, our radar started to detect a Class 2.
They do have a radar. Where is it?
At our size, who had just finished doing their thing, and one of them had brought up the fact that something was going to come from a very specific direction. He had a really good feeling about.
I'm literally streaming to 7 different websites at the same time right now, guys. It doesn't take much effort to record a screen, right?
A specific location.
Maybe to give away too much data if they did that. Location data.
Predicting when the machine calling and the radar team will actually sense an object.
The Class 2 is the classic tic-tac. We have had laser rangefinder returns on them to give us distance. And through that method and the optical zoom, we are able to measure. We think they're about 40 feet in length, and they appear to be traveling supersonic and hypersonic. A very interesting thing, which you'll see in the videos, is when we do see them, they're at the edge of our sensor capabilities. You'll see like there's striations around these stills, and sometimes it almost looks like it bends, almost like it's not a solid mass. So when it's spinning, when it comes out of the spin, for a second, it looks like part of it, like probably a third of it, is bendable and it bends.
And at this point, is it dropping rapidly?
Yes, the only thing that's changing is the angle that we're looking at it with.
The elevation angle, is that right?
Yes, and
aliens are trolling us
in a downward fashion. The system operator is having a very hard time keeping in frame because it's falling so fast.
Dropping fast.
So you can't zoom in, and our servos don't move that fast, so our equipment can't handle that zoom factor with the speed. You'll see multiple UAPs in these, and as in they're flying together. I don't know that they're in a formation. You know, if you go frame by frame, you can see their cylinders.
Wow.
So that's the Class 2.
Fascinating.
We sent the helo out to intercept the tic-tac, but the first attempt failed because our radar was being jammed by the Class 7 jellyfish.
Where were we in the sky the first time you saw that? That was when we were 7 kilometers or so out.
So, jammed radar could imply a couple different things, right? One, it could imply that intelligently it's trying to mask itself, which it could be doing. They said it was a jellyfish. A jellyfish would probably remind you something more of organics, right? With that being said, it's entirely possible to make an organic, like, because Star Trek, once again, seeding our media, guys. Star Trek, or sci-fi in general, it's entirely possible for aircraft or, UAPs to potentially be organic, but at the same time, they're also still a spacecraft, right? So it's entirely possible that it could also be an NHI inside of a jellyfish, and the jellyfish itself is intelligently blocking the radar, or it could also be that it's putting off some sort of EMI or RFI, which is jamming the radar, right? Well, I mean, if you're talking about stealth, right, that's a little bit different. Stealth is more like it doesn't have a cross-section, so it's an attempt at camouflage, where this is more of attempting to prevent the radar from actually... I don't think you can even jam radar. You can hide from radar, which is what stealth aircraft do, by lowering the cross-section and how the radar beam bounces back, but I don't think it's actually possible to jam radar itself. I don't know enough about military technology, but I've never actually heard of a jamming radar, besides in the sci-fi setting, jamming radar. like I said, stealth is completely different. Stealth is camouflage, where you're trying to minimize the cross-section and areas of the aircraft that can bounce back signals with either absorbing paint. So something like, if you guys know how acoustic foam works, right? Where it absorbs basically the sound energy and then it doesn't bounce off. So they have paint in addition to like how the aircraft is shaped, and then also the heat signature, which is different than radar. That's FLIR, that's infrared, right? Have you seen Spaceballs? Spaceballs, top notch. I mean, aliens were going to town. They're in a drunk saloon when they're making Spaceballs. Spaceballs is a fantastic movie if you're into old school sci-fi, by the way.
Out to the northwest.
She's set the suck.
Spot that we went to.
We kept trying to climb, and it wouldn't let us.
Our helicopter launched, and about a half mile out, the helicopter stopped moving. Engines running.
By the way, well, drones, they kind of poo-pooed on drones at the beginning of the video. I will say, being in a helicopter, and if they decide to shut that thing down, you're kind of shit out of luck as far as what you can do goes. So, I don't know. You'd be better off in a paraglider than you would be in a helicopter at that point.
Blades are turning, but it would not go forward. It would not go up. It would not go left or right. It was stuck there.
Curious bit. So, something they could have done in this situation is if it was literally held in place, like they're talking like tractor beam stuff, right? Which, by the way, they should have videotaped this while this was happening to show that this was happening instead of having story time. I don't know, how are these guys not wearing GoPros? Like, GoPros are like $50. You could literally buy like 100 of them on eBay for like, what, $5,000? Like, bro. How are these guys not wearing body cams all the time? No idea. It's cheap as shit. You literally can set it just to reset the data like a security cam if they don't catch anything. It doesn't really matter. Corroborating the fact that this is happening would be huge. Corroborating with video evidence would be absolutely huge. Putting that aside, in the case of like what we can already learn here, assuming that this was real and this isn't just made up stuff for their Ghost Hunters show here, which doesn't really look that way based on what we've seen. It does not look like AI. None of the stuff we've seen so far looks like AI. And I've seen a lot of shit on like crappy AI on Twitter, or X now. But what we can already surmise here in this hypothetical situation in which they're talking about is if this helicopter is stuck in the air, blades still generate lift, and it would literally rip the blades off the helicopter, as far as what I understand from helicopters themselves. So it was actually actively negating physics, because the helicopter the blades would just explode, because they basically generate a bunch of lift, and you can imagine like something forcing it down hard enough where it prevents it from going up or changing directions. Like when the blades just rip off the helicopter at that point, because they're like literally running into a force strong enough to prevent them from doing. Actually, I don't know, because like helicopters are weird, because it's kind of like a impeller. So if you can imagine how a pump works, right? So maybe if it was pushing hard enough on it, it could prevent it from going up. But if it stops it, it would rip the blades off. So not pushing against the blades themselves, so airflow. But if it actually just stopped the helicopter from moving, the blades would probably rip off. But if it was just moving up in the air, like if it changed the airflow itself, then it wouldn't potentially do that, right? Maybe hypotheticals here. There's definitely some really weird physics that would be at work there, but just essentially made it so the blades didn't interact with the air at all. But if there was like just stopping the aircraft, the blades would have ripped off. So some way interacting with the aircraft to stop it from moving, but not in a way where it actually hurt the aircraft.
Launched.
Also body cams.
About a half mile out, the helicopter stopped moving. Engines running, blades are turning, but it would not go forward. It would not go up. It would not go left or right. It was stuck there.
So we're kind of.
The blades stop turning?
Up. Blades are turning.
Oh, they're turning.
But it would not go forward. It would not go.
Not generating
up.
lift.
It would not go left or right. It was stuck there.
So we're kind of imagine like a blanket above us. It's like pressing us down.
So maybe we were in proximity to it. It will say, "Don't come any higher."
Yeah, that's.
Because that was when I told you guys elevate, right?
So
That's fascinating.
We were called out to intercept an object that was found on radar. We went to the location it was supposed to be at. We circled a couple times and were requested to climb another 1,000 feet. The instrumentation started to bounce and the collective basically was frozen.
Body cams,
I've
guys.
never experienced anything like it before. I've got over 4,000 hours of flight time, and
You can buy body cams on Amazon.
So we don't know how they're jamming us.
There we go.
How they're turning our equipment off yet. Best guess would be a microwave signal.
They recorded that, but they didn't record the helicopter not moving.
For our collection equipment.
Yeah, this is north, but it's not giving a reading at all. It's off.
Either it's moving supersonic out of here with noiselessly, or it's flipping a switch and now you see me, now you don't. And I kind of feel like it's the second one. So it's really looking interesting that we're seeing multiple classes, 3 classes today, 2, 5, and 7. We saw them all with binoculars and or the naked eye, which is really new for us.
They say which ones what they use to track them, either psionics or dog whistle.
That the class 2 and class 5 seem to be putting themselves.
Either said
between
dog
us
whistle.
and the jellyfish. We don't know what that means. We don't have enough data yet to say that conclusively. And the fact that
I need to use names.
The class 2 and class 5 seem to be putting themselves between us and the jellyfish.
Use the name for the jellyfish. 2 and 5. 2, I think, is one of the sentient ones. Tic Tac, right? Jellyfish could be an actual animal, right? Something that's not necessarily sentient. So these guys look like they're built, right? So we saw the triangle, the bro. Guys, it's someone's job to literally look at these photos. How the fuck is there a giant Earth-sized triangle floating around inside of the sun right now? Or not right now, between 2019 and 2022, and no one decided to go, hey, what is that? You're talking about the one I've seen on, yeah, they aren't that big. They're like literally the size of a smaller drone. Car, maybe? Small, like half car. They aren't that big. And obviously are drones and make a lot of noise and you can see them. Yeah. So we got our triangles here. We got our cylinder Tic Tacs. Why they call them triangles? Too simple. And then you got your, these are, on social media, there's one prolific clip of a boomerang, I think from 2005 above a city, which was briefly recorded by multiple different people. I don't know if that's real or not, as far as the footage being legitimate as opposed to AI stuff, though. Which is your boomerangs here, which they call manta rays. What? They don't look like manta rays. What are these guys doing? Kind of looks like a manta ray. I'd assume more of a boomerang, but, you know. So they have these guys that are between them and this thing. So this thing might actually be an animal of some kind that's attracted to whatever they're doing. And these guys are like wildlife preserve. These are the wildlife preservationists. What are they called? You know, the people that guard wildlife sanctuaries. Stopping this guy from exploding their faces, which is hilarious in a kind of crude sort of way. But these might actually be sentient NHIs, and this might be something that's more like an animal, or maybe even hostile NHI, but it's probably just an animal. And these guys are stopping it from literally melting their faces off. Where the fuck was I?
So zoom, we are rapidly. If you go frame by frame, you can see their cylinders.
Wow.
You'll see like there's striations around.
It's gonna come. Wow.
At that spot that we went to.
And he kept trying to climb, and we just.
Controls are resisting.
That's fascinating.
we were called out to.
On the frequencies we're using for our collection equipment.
Yeah, this is north, but it's not giving a reading at all. It's off.
Either it's moving supersonic out of here with noiselessly, or it's flipping a switch and now you see me, now you don't. And I kind of feel like it's the second one. So it's really looking interesting that we're seeing multiple classes, 3 classes today, 2, 5, and 7. We saw them all
There's a recap.
with binoculars and or the naked eye, which is really new for us. We've not had that experience in the last 5 years. And the fact
sensory
that,
deprivation tank.
the class 2
Put
and
their
class
net
5
runners
seem
in
to
them,
be
guys.
putting themselves between us and the jellyfish. We don't know what that means. We don't have enough data yet to say that conclusively, and I'm not quite sure
Have any really good net runners? They literally remind me of net runners from Cyberpunk.
how many times we have to see something like that till we understand that that's probably the case. Also interesting that the class 5 and class 2 took 3 or 4 days to show up.
So they 5 and 2 are the Tic Tac and the boomerangs, right? So they realize what's going on, and their response to the potential that the wildlife is messing with them, might be fucking with them. Huh. So they could actually be potentially, you know, responding to a threat to these guys to stop them from getting hurt. But obviously they don't know what's going on until, like, much later on. They must have some way of tracking them. Very curious.
The class 5 we call the manta ray. It looks to
Boomerangs.
be like it's written a manta ray. It has round everywhere. I don't think there's anything straight or nearly straight. We actually went frame by frame.
Not a
on
boomerang,
this. It
then.
was tumbling slowly and derived a 3D model of what we think it looks like. Here you can see it tumbling and spinning on multiple axes as it comes through the frame.
And you
Do
said
they
this
morph?
is going perpendicular to the wind and faster than the wind.
Yes, it was on radar. It was on imagery, multiple bands. And the interesting thing is the radar shows this vibrating as well, the same heartbeat signal,
Radar.
which is really a boost
Right now.
in our analysis because only UAPs appear
That's
to
an airplane,
have
by the way,
vertical,
Slain.
horizontal heartbeat. Manned aircraft, balloons, birds, drones, they don't. They have a flat line trajectory and also a flat line radar signature. So
Very
that's the class 5.
Excellent.
After every event, it seems as though we leave with more questions than we do answers.
Uh-oh.
Our mission in our investigation
Plus
is
hunters.
truly just getting started. We're quickly learning, in fact, how many things that we still don't know.
Skywatcher will release full modules for each of the 9 UAP classes on YouTube and our website in the coming weeks. Please
It's on their website already
understand
under the
that
research
this
section.
is a live operation unfolding in real time. We are doing our best to create a taxonomy of these objects based on the data we've collected, but we need your help.
Part 3 of Skywatcher is going to be about psionics. It's
Ah!
going to be about the team
net
that we've
runners?
assembled. You're going to hear
They're
from
camping
some
guys.
of them directly. You'll hear about their experience, their background, and how they found them, some of it about psionics. It's
I'm telling you, dip these guys in a sensory deprivation tank and see what happens with them. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't think this is that far-fetched.
going to be about the team that we've assembled. You're going to hear from some of them directly. You'll hear about their experience, their background, and how they found themselves here alongside us today. And if we can validate the existence
Probably one of the most...
these
So,
abilities,
prior to this year, guys, literally prior to this year, I didn't actually think psionics were anything more than telepathy. And I highly suggest, guys, if you don't are unaware, to take a look at the telepathy tapes on... where is it? Basically, it's a podcast talking about a scientist that literally is going through already existing research where they're finding correlations with telepathic... What do you call it? Potential telepathic abilities in already existing science, but were basically thrown out as data, or people didn't actually go and look at it. Like really weird connections where they already did an experiment and potentially have a correlation between the two. And then on top of it, like, actually goes and does experiments with these kids. She does experiments with the kids as well. Very, very interesting sit. Most of the kids are autistic too, and what they're finding out is, you know how you're just kind of as a TLDR, you know, like for instance, if you go blind, your hearing becomes more acute, or if you lose your hearing, your sight becomes more acute. or if you lose both your senses, your touch becomes more acute, one of those things. They're actually figuring out that they potentially are actually using psionic abilities or telepathy outside of normal senses, right? Yeah, and it's actually something where she's attempting to verify and validate this through science, which is pretty insane. Like, we've gotten to this point. Prior to this year, I legitimately would not have actually thought it was anything more than kind of a sci-fi maybe and scamming trope. Like, other than that, this year is really fucking weird. Absolutely weird as shit. And psionics, I didn't even hear about psionics in regard to UAPs prior to, I think it was Skywatcher Ranch 1, like the first episode. I think that's the first time I actually heard about them using psionics as a method for summoning these guys or attempting to communicate with them, which actually makes an awful lot of sense if you're trying to, in terms of how we communicate right now with our fleshy bits and keyboards and mice, right, for an input peripheral. If you could actually be able to read people's brainwaves, as which we are already becoming capable of with Neuralink. If you guys are curious about that, good morning, Cool. If you're already curious about that, with Neuralink, we're already getting to the point where machines are being able to interface with their brain. That's obviously very crude, but we're already at that point, right? So if you have something much more advanced, there might be a way of communicating with your actual thoughts without using an embed in your skull, right? Like, Neuralink is not actually, like, it's not pseudoscience. It actually exists. There's a couple people with implants already, and one guy literally says it's basically akin to cheats, and he uses it to play Civilization. Like, yeah, with his mind. So the idea that telepathy or psionics in general exists is actually not as far-fetched as it actually seems.
Completely and scientifically, then that information necessitates
Here's camping.
an entirely new concept of reality and our place in it as human beings.
Yeah. Good? Good episode, guys. As mentioned, I wanted to cover this. Last episode, I think, came out 2 months ago. 2 months ago, oh my god, don't turn the comments off. It's going to turn into a shit show, but people want to talk about it. I don't know why they turned it. Like, I can't imagine that much hate being in the comments section. Maybe they preemptively did this. Pretty good stuff. This was literally 14 hours ago. I was already has 110,000 views. I hope they hit a couple mil. Next couple days is actually going to be really telling. See if it trends harder. It really depends on who picks it up, too. There's a lot of original footage in this, in addition to having morphologies, or as they call them, like what this is, dichotomy. Basically how they sort these out, right? They actually have a lot of original footage. They have a lot of original footage, and based on what we're looking at here, I would say some of these are more in line with animals, as opposed to animals, insects, or, other than sentient life. But some of these actually legitimately seem like they're in a sentient category, which are these guys right here, especially these two. These, I'd say, are like maybe even a civilization of some kind, like two different civilizations doing things. Based purely on different aesthetics and kind of how they work, move around. These guys definitely like range in size from probably the egg is in the Tic Tac category to literally giant rods that are in the air. And the one they said was about the size of a bus, I would say. They summed it up with people lengthwise. I think it was about the size of a bus. They stuff flying around is super far up in the air. And some of these are like maybe animals, like this guy down here. And some of these might just be maybe animals or equivalent of an animal or something along the lines of, I don't know, there's a lot of different qualifications of what can actually be life, right? And sentient life. And Star Trek covers a lot of that. Oh, they have egg as its own classification? I'd put egg and Tic Tac. This is like a single person Tic Tac. But looks like they got a separate one for egg. Animal float around. I mean, I don't fucking know. I don't know the physiology. Maybe they developed in space on an asteroid. Just because we can't float around doesn't mean other things can't float around. Birds fly, right? Bumblebees also fly. Maybe it's like swimming for them, only they're swimming through air or space or a relationship in space and physics form. I don't know. Come with all different sorts of weird criteria. Machine calling and psionic calling, neuromeditative interaction. That is a mouthful. So psionics versus dog whistle. And once again, it might even be possible where psionics are more of a trained thing. And if they're around the dog whistle long enough, they might figure out exactly what it's kind of doing. And they could potentially train people off the dog whistle in psionics. I'm just kind of curious. I mean, like an explosion akin to chemical reactions? Sure. Might do. I have no idea. There's like, it gets into a weird enough category where there's no way you could actually figure it out without actually, knowing more about them. Just observing it in the first place is just kind of the starting point, where you just know that that's weird and maybe we should look at it more and figure out what it is. Guys, if you are astrologist, astrology, and astrology, astrology is the stars thing, isn't it? What is the one for planets then? Not astrology. Astronomy. What do they call them? Astronomer. If you're an astronomer, and you literally look at photos of... How did I not know that? If you literally look at photos of the sun, guys, every day, how do you not notice this thing floating around it for 3 years? Regardless of the timestamp or the stamp in the top left, what you're actually interested in is the bottom right here, which is helioviewer.org, which is actually the website that records all the photos that they take of the sun. And here are the timestamps and the criteria that they're using right now. It was lens or filter. It's on the website, though. I looked at it. It literally does exist. This isn't made up. Just sitting there floating, guys, for 3 years. It was floating in front of the sun in a geosynchronous orbit with Earth as we rotated around the sun. Relax in there. It's a satellite. It's a fucking satellite. What do you mean? Also, yes. Slane is trying so hard to debunk this, guys. He is trying so hard. Because it doesn't make sense, does it? No. This is my favorite one right now, and this came out 3 days ago, and prior to this, no one talked about it, no one noticed it. Even like the randos on Reddit, I don't see anything about it on Google. But someone decided to look at the photos of the sun and realize this is actually just there. 3 years. This isn't just like, this is over a time lapse over time. Just 3 years floating from the sun. I don't know, guys. Crazy shit, guys. Forbidden Dorito, it's true. But yeah, I'd say the egg is actually a Tic Tac. It's like a single person Tic Tac and gets down small enough. A lot of original footage in here, guys. A lot of stuff none of this stuff's on Twitter. They clearly are trying to track it. I expected to see more radar and FLIR data in here. I didn't really. There's a flying dildo. Wildlife wardens, dangerous wildlife. Maybe. Stop it from getting too close. Curious stuff. Okay, well, we're going to cover the rest of this, guys, every time it comes out. Interesting stuff. Definitely a lot of stuff that's new in here. And really, really hope other people look at this. Weirdly enough, guys, I've talked about this before. Every time some like really weird shit comes out, we cover it on on Twitch, right? There's a lot of streamers that seemingly don't care. Like, you think sci-fi or the fact that fantasy or potential for aliens would actually be, like, it would literally just, like, tickle that part of geeks' brains and be like, hey, shit, we aren't alone sort of thing. But weirdly enough, there's, like, almost no one that covers this stuff. You think it'd just be something that everyone would be interested in, right? Like, I still don't understand my fellow humans all the time. It's just like, hey, what is that? Is this real? Is this just made-up sci-fi shit? You know, like, maybe it's because like, Twitch and streaming platforms are so niche, or not niche, so cliquey, that people don't want to be the guy that talks about the things that no one else is talking about unless it's trending somewhere. And this is just kind of weirdly out there. Like UAPs and UFOs is just like, it's like one of those weird things that, like, people don't take seriously, along like with sex, right? And even though people take food seriously, this is the other part of the id that they just don't, they want to talk about. Like, did I miss out on something? Like, I think I'm being perfectly reasonable here within everything that they talked about. They weren't really going outside the ordinary in terms of, hey, look, just believe, right? They did have plenty of cinematography in here where they actually tried to make this look like a professional show, right? But I think they did a pretty good job of making their case. I would have preferred to have more footage in here, especially, once again, with infrared radar. That would actually be pretty cool if you could actually do something like this with Doppler, and someone that's into programming would have to be able to figure that out. Whether or not you could actually use Doppler to verify and corroborate what they're seeing in, you know, in space right here. Because it can actually see birds flying around. It should be able to detect stuff like this flying around. Assuming it's not cloaking itself. It's just another sensor that they potentially have access to, right? If they look like a cat, they'd be interesting. Well, then it'd probably be a cat. So, I'm not sure that's exactly what you're looking for. Okay. Let's see, guys. What time is it? We're probably going to play some games here, guys. We're going to shift out of podcast section. We'll take a look at episode 3 when that pops out. Whenever that pops out. This, once again, was like 2 months later, I think. I think the first one... No, a month later. 2 months later. I think the first one was in February. We'll take a look at episode 3 when it comes out. Yeah, 2 months ago. So probably another 2 months. Depends on how fast they ramp this up. It could be this was just an introduction thing. Hope they start to ramp this better so we can get more information. Also, if you guys are interested in the criteria, it's right over here. Oh. We're gonna have a gallery of stuff and ways that they've stuff they've captured. Well, that's neat. Once again, I think the Tic Tacs are just your eggs are small Tic Tacs. Like a Pokemon. This is a Pokédex, guys, for UAPs.